I've spent the past month pondering the question of how to scientifically quantify the quality of God of War 4. I've finally come to a satisfying conclusion.
Who made this burger, dog?
After perpetuating a mass extinction event on an entire race in what can best be described as the ethically questionable ethnic cleansing method of incapacitating their entire pantheon, I would recommend retiring, as one 9/11 event utilizing an army of humanoid subterranean creatures overdosing on growth hormones for the last millennia as the offending aircraft would personally be enough to dissuade me from another. However, Kratos reprises his rather unsettling role in another mythos, terrorizing the scene with his unrequited sexual aggressions upon the Norse gods through the lewd arts as seen in the traditional mating customs of the Greeks. A demonstration would get my point across more effectively. But let that reality not detract from the burning questions. Will Kratos supplant the current ruling faction? Do we dare question if he can kill an immortal? Does Odin's X take outcalls, perhaps even allowing the members to run a train? Furthermore, can we gather enough evidence to extrapolate on whether Kratos actually remembers the name of his offspring?
Boy, inside, boy. Boy, stay out of it, boy.
Let's go smoke some crack off the hole in Mimir's neck.
Oh, this would be the part requiring my assistance then.
And play God of War on crack. I almost made to select God of War, although following some deductive reasoning, I break out of my masochistic stupor lest I suffer a fate worse than the minigames. Selecting the one immediately preceding video game journalist difficulty, we bear witness to a seamless transition, proving Kratos is startlingly staring every time you load up the title screen, and what a marvelous stalker he is. Introducing the man who never once voted Democrat, Harry Spotter, the boy who lifted. The epitome of a peak physical specimen. We thoroughly analyzed his DNA and found it wasn't DNA, it was NBA. This 700-pound assault weapon with daddy issues is playing for the wrong Spartans. Immediately following my snapping of as many screenshots as my PC's hard drive would allow, I believe to have uncovered what occurred here. His son consumed the yellow snow, gagging and finding support in this trunk as he attempted to wrest back control of his convulsing body. Tragic, really. Kratos unveils his sensitive side as he is nothing short of enraged that the lemon-colored treat got the better of his poor boy, assaulting the soon-to-be stump with the rather unsettling vigor of coming home to his wife not having dinner prepared. After the brazen attack against climate change and my fairly accurate summation of events, well, what you got under there, Kratos? What are you hiding? Nothing that would bring horrors to the African-American community, I would hope. Atreus, the morbidly curious son, sleuths around attempting to find ample evidence to justify Kratos' cancellation, but the old man is a veteran at keeping would-be ex-watchers at bay. The minigames prove it beyond reasonable doubt, leaving me certain there's a director's cut on the hub somewhere. Osama bin Kratos lifts the down tree like it was eating its meals at Auschwitz the previous week, and even my attempts at testing his balance by awkwardly scurrying around in a tap dancing technique proves ineffective, as his rather substantial core is too great an obstacle to overcome. He strictly informs his son that any tighter and the next rope shall be strung around his neck before boating towards our destination.
Father,
What?
did something change?
It is well below freezing and my testicular contents are fleeing through the southern border into my pelvis. Of course shit's changed. After boating the grueling distance of 50 meters, Kratos abuses the tree like he was role-playing Minecraft Steve before carrying it using the forbidden Riley Reid technique. Ignoring the potential legality of this maneuver, we arrive to a log house which I believe to be ours as no southerner has unleashed their bolt action so far. To prevent witnesses to the lethal murder of Miss Reed, we follow Atreus into the cozy log cabin with a previous victim currently rendered unconscious within.
Oh, there do I see my mother.
Homie's been reading a thesaurus.
Oh, there do I see my father.
Both. Without accepting Scandinavians are to that kind of erotic behavior, I wouldn't be too surprised if they were spearheading the non-binary movement way back when they were spearing the heads of Anglo-Saxons.
Hey yo, is that a bitch?
You fucking bigot! Kratos returns, resembling Batman with his malicious look, no doubt preparing to shatter both my tibias as it appears I'll need to think up a last-ditch excuse for why he found me pants down fifth limb mid-thrust inside my pillow. Not to worry, father, this is standard procedure. I was just performing a routine maintenance check on my penis. It seems to be in working order. Systols are all functioning at baseline levels. He enters and whispers some prayers to mother, although slightly concerning is that he believes her to be free after death and yearns for her sweet release, no doubt regretting he didn't rethink not initiating a late-stage abortion the week prior. Betting odds have Atreus awakening in the town's communal orphanage tomorrow like...
Hey, you. You're finally awake.
Kratos sets her atop the victims of the greatest Brazilian logging performance I've ever personally witnessed before realizing in hindsight the risking of a geostorm of biological proportions, with half the surface area in a 50-mile radius composed of flammable materials, wasn't the optimal burial technique. Atreus notices a valuable superheating and makes the baffling decision of looting the preheated corpse and refuting his brain's request to relinquish said item for quite the protracted amount of time. Kratos, being both the man who firmly knows who he's voting for in 2024 and sensing the weakness of his child, fears a potential future in knee-high boots and hookups in conversion therapy camps, opting to challenge the kid to a manly snowball fight, showing him proper form, and just as I thought he was about to unleash that XX triangle square on the 11-year-old in what most would consider maltreatment in the form of mauling, decides another avenue is in his best interest so as to avoid child services catching a whiff of his ethically questionable abusive activities, instead opting to arm the child and train him as a recruit.
Now?
Did I say you could talk, recruit? Move, 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 move!
What are we hunting?
You are hunting for furries!
Which way?
In the direction of furries! Move, move, move! Needless to say, I'm mildly concerned we're allowing the pier to burn in the middle of more wood than a strip club with complimentary Viagra. If this does turn into a bout of ecological terrorism, we may need to switch sides and join up with Lord Miles instead. Mountains are nearby, shouldn't be too strenuous a task to locate them, especially with my special Taliban whistle on hand. Our ankle is showing, our ankle is showing.
Now, if you don't get that sound the first time you try, maybe it needs to be a little bit wetter.
Of course, for any government agent scrutinizing my content, this is all for jokes. I wouldn't send children to do my bidding, just like I wouldn't orchestrate a ploy to incorporate faulty numbers on my tax forms. And not without proper training, of course. This is, after all, a recruitment and preparatory ground before moving into the mountains for our real enemy. We staunchly patrol the perimeter while invoking the ancient tradition of finders keepers for some trinkets the furries abandoned after hearing I was on the hunt again. We locate boar tracks, but the first Sona doesn't match any of our targets, so no luck there. Vaulting onto the sabotaged bridge, finding some venison track. What is that thing? That ain't a deer? I was expecting a larger than average health bar to grace my bottom screen with its presence while a banger plays in the background. Regaining my composure, I order Atreus to slow down, as this one is an ultra rare meant to grace its presence on my fireplace. Atreus let—
Way off, it's the side of the backboard.
Dylan Brooks. What are you doing? Only fire when I tell you to fire.
We arrive to the result of Groot after evidently securing himself quite the substantial harem when he dropped into Asgard. Add in the thousands of years of evolution and training in the dark arts, which has rendered them perfectly optimized for combat in this environment. I conclude these fascinating creatures would be optimal allies in my journey to cull the demand in the fursuit market, which makes it really unfortunate I have to introduce them to my late-stage abortion device. A good thing I consumed trees like you for breakfast, made much more palatable after sprinkling the key ingredient A-salt into the mix, leaving Atreus' flabbers thoroughly gasted at how Groots were able to penetrate this deep into the forest. I raid a tomb with the only discernible loot contained within, a pouch with an apple on it, despite my crushing letdown at not being able to display a foreign artifact at a museum in central London. We take some time off to watch a James Bond movie before playing Spy right after while the motivation is still high. My god, it's them. Disposing of these undomesticated cretins who failed to escape with the herd, displaying nothing less than the ruthless efficiency of John Wick after somebody tripped over his dog.
They were just hungry.
What?
The wolves.
Oh, my bad, I didn't know. My apologies. Next time I'll bake him a cake. A cup of agony, a pinch of cock and ball torture, and 2 tablespoons of anal goatsy. How's that sound? After exercising this disingenuous form of mental gymnastics, I continue bestowing fatherly wisdom, teaching Atreus it isn't looting if the sarcophagus is old enough. Following the legal piracy, we observe the deer leading us into some sort of ancient Nordic structure.
My mom told me never to go in there.
We do what we please, boy.
Considering Kratos and his proclivity to bench evergreens, I'm not sure we need to fret about a little old temple. He locates the victim and asks for his bow bat. What? You missed the shot when he was half that distance and you expect to hit it from Narnia and back? After confirming he doesn't have the heat-seeking arrow module unlocked, he reconsiders his decision and instead begins questioning my current reinstatement into his life. I struggle to convey to him I was locked in Mortal Kombat attempting to secure the lactose product from the vile 18-year-old minimum wage gas station employee. One of my most arduous trials took years to accomplish that odyssey, hence my absence from your youth. Some products of Groot that possess chronically disabled lateral movement cut us off, but they are but a fraction of the strength of my axe. As I reprised my role as a Brazilian logging company, dislodging them from their defensive positions, leading to a mass charge, the mortality of which made the Battle of the Somme look like a LARP event. Discovering that despite being a god with a vertical leap enough so to make Mount Everest look like an intermediate box jump, a few rocks and some elevation is evidently enough to halt my advance. The first puzzle, which did not take me 30 minutes to do the first time, is accomplished with relative ease. In hindsight, if I had to serve as an IQ test the last time, I could only hope to get at best severe mental retardation or more likely high-functioning ape.
Where are you going? I think he's this way.
Alright there, Leif Erikson, I'm just tactically securing funds for our great expedition. We find some giant space dogs chasing the sun and moon, which is impractical considering it's the Earth spinning that causes the cycle. The sun stays still. Apologies, forgot it was the Middle Ages. The Catholic Church is currently ramming down my door. We discover our enemy in its natural habitat, refusing to leave its vile fursuit. Knowing it smells like a sewer in there, I steady Atreus' bow, making sure not to cause too big a leak, lest what might as well be mustard gas coats the surrounding area in a Chernobyl-like disaster.
I got it.
Good.
I advise him to finish what he started with the knife, but he's showing signs of petrification and worried he'll treat our enemies with the respect they deserve instead of viewing them as the subhuman filth they are. I calmly and collectively inform him of the perils of such a decision, aiding him in finishing off the deer. Kratos goes to hold his son, but realizing he was gone for the first 10 years of his life, opts to go for the knife instead. Well, it seems something else hates furries as much as I do. That something being a sort of ogre-like creature with impractical tusks used for main attraction if I were to wager a guess. I expertly duck and weave around Dodi Cop Mater, which must be French for assault victim, as this game has not forgotten the finish him from the previous installments. Taking his tusk, effectively rendering him impotent with no hope for a mate, the realization of which made him give up on life shortly thereafter. As I finish off the Cop Mater bloodline right then and there, Atreus appears after the deed is done, and fecal incontinence set in, acting as if he did anything on the drive-by in a commendable effort at masking the fact. His magazine is still full and Glock in pristine condition, unleashing a flurry of paper cuts against the already deceased 8 elixir cost monster. Knowing these signs point to an acute attack of psychosis, Kratos calms down his son, yelling that the voices aren't real before Atreus comes back to us. With no recollection of what just transpired, Atreus is left aghast that Kratos has no trust in his abilities, making his hard work on the hunt moot.
I haven't been sick in a long time. I can do this.
You are not ready.
I am ready.
You talking back now? Calculating that pushing this topic is not in the best interest for his survival odds, he gives in as we begin our ascent, unleashing our intensified rage against the Draugr and unlocking some finishers reminiscent of various gang initiations when remnants of the Night King's army show up. Impervious to my frost axe, forcing me to unleash the mythical power of 1,000 suns, otherwise known as these hands against the Game of Thrones cosplayers who can't let go of Season 8's disaster class. We return home, surprised that it's still in intact and not a pile of smoldering ruins stemming from a masterful demonstration in negligence as Atreus gives some backstory and poses difficult questions with no right answer, forcing Kratos to concede his ignorance, entering as we collect our ashes in a fanny pack and enter inside to beat my kid's ass for talking back in public, even has the belt to do it. Inside, the fully developed fetus keeps talking back after the whipping, so I conclude the need to enroll him into an anger management class, employing the tactic of obliterating his confidence, not holding back despite my quintupling of his age until he loses control, making a fool of himself as I try to instill my knowledge into the malleable mind of a child whom I have high hopes for in his future career as a good soldier.
What was that?
Quiet.
Come on out! It's no use hiding anymore. I know who you are.
Shit, they found the camp. Quickly, boy, inside. I begin reciting my lines while opening the door. I was just following orders, I was just following orders, I was just meeting what looks to be a recently paroled sex offender coming to tell me of his spot on the prestigious registry, but surprising me when that was indeed not the reason for his visit, thinking I'd be bigger, but how I'm definitely who he's looking for. Unfortunately for him, I haven't taken in-call since the disaster of '87. While telling the Skid Row crackhead I am not in possession of industrial-grade jet fuel and to look elsewhere for his addiction, but he halts my de-escalation attempts.
And here I thought your kind was supposed to be so enlightened.
Then you thought wrong, as nothing can be more enlightened than a TCLR subscriber. The average TCLR subscriber spends their lives bettering the position of the human race, with various technological advancements meant to improve lives. In fact, even laws that were untrue before, with the Earth revolving around the sun being the chief example, immediately changed their gravitational forces in order to adhere to the laws set out by said TCLR subscriber in question. The telephone, sliced bread, the wheel, the internet, the atomic bomb, all of which was discovered by people who left a like and subscribed to inherit such powers while also, more importantly, not missing out on future content. After continuing to prove my merit as a hopeful diplomat of the United Nations,
I'm pretty sure I do.
I proved just as effective as said organization, continuing my more nuanced approach, leaving the strange man tweaking on crystal meth to continue his attempts to rile me up. Well, if you want to be dominated so badly. Safe word must be at least 8 letters and contain one special character.
Fine. My turn.
I may have miscalculated the situation. The stranger wields 3 attack patterns, each of which a different variation of mid, and after playing Elden Ring right before this, I might as well be Muhammad Ali off narcotic stimulants in the U18 Amateur League. He launches me onto the roof after a sufficient ass-whooping, asking for information I'm unable to provide, unfortunately finding a second bed in there as he now has more questions. Enraging Kratos as he makes Lee, our savior from episode 2, look tame in comparison, but one suplex later I bait him into an abuse of trees. Battering ram charge. He claims I hit like his grandma, being old, weak, and slow with a small dick too. I'm Greek. Where I come from, that's a compliment. After that surprise counter, he is forced to hit back with a killer beat.
Penitentiary chances, the devil dances and eventually answers to the call of autumn.
This is where the fun begins. Kratos says it's hero time and transforms into a Ben 10 alien, showing him his veteran skills honed in the Trojan Wars as my fisting mate officer TCLR from last video look like a hall monitor attempting to eradicate sprinting in the hallways. He adds one more variation of mid, but none of which hold up to the tree sentinel, as with this ankle I can safely conclude he was dropped into a salsa dance club as an infant. I feel inspired by this bout to the death and begin sculpting some bits of rock, but instead of a man with a micro penis, I halt halfway and drop the entire thing on his head, causing tectonic plates to shift, reminding the world of the powers of the weakest TCLR subscriber. Walking home with victory in hand, defeating the metal punk fan method acting as Mike Tyson.
Leaving so soon?
He may prove a tougher opponent than I first assumed. Half of Madagascar's landmass is launched at my coordinates, serving as a distraction for him to vault into my guard, and during our cuddle session he notifies me of Odin's involvement in all this, and that he took well past the daily recommended dose of analgesic anesthesia preceding our bout to the death, taking our fight to the skies being now reminiscent of Peter beefing with Big Bird for no apparent reason. How long is this protracted conflict going to last, and how many biomes will it take place in? Continuing our world tour, he attempts to kick me off, but gives just enough space for me to heal my wound. Alright, I'm confused as to why he looks like he's emitting a heat source that can hatch chickens. RTX 3070, my ass, we're running the shit on an easy bake oven.
Making something new with Easy Bake, really baking. I can bake.
The man who huffed the FBI's entire stock.
The chronically addicted drug addict with an impressive collection of used needles informs me of his grievances and how he really didn't want this, and how my undesirable reaction to him repeatedly assaulting me led to all this, and how I'm truly the guilty party. One last round where he adds an AoE jump so telegraphed I was able to orchestrate another coup in Niger before I had to respond with a dodge. But he whittles me down to not just red, but one tap. If this was Warzone, he'd be hurling slurs unheard of till recently at his teammates, instructing them to get me before he gets with their mothers, deciding it's time to show my true powers against this radicalized college dropout, letting these hands loose against the emaciated San Francisco resident, activating the subscribe button and using the flurry of flaming fists to finish this battle off, rectifying the mistake his mother made in the gas station bathroom all those years ago. Pained, exhausted, and paranoid, we limp back as the elusive they have found me. Truly a menacing name, as the progressive they-them Vikings are about to plunder my anal virginity. You'd be forgiven for thinking I downed a lethal amount of enema with how soiled my undergarments were left, as Kratos does the same thing while pleading for Faye's guidance, knowing our son is going to be rooming with Lord Miles if we trek towards the mountains, before we can even look to spread her ashes as she wished. Finally concluding that we cannot stay here as the ops have located my home base and there's a conga line of white Van Sans license plates closing in on our location. Furthermore, I am shocked, gobbler smacked if you will. The developed sperm actually heeded my instructions. Half expected him to show up middle of the fight wielding some 11.7 by 8.3 A4s with textbook form. I brief him on his hopes coming to fruition, and in fact, he is ready to go stop the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan's forces and to prepare his supplies, pointing at our destination and hoping all that 15 minutes of counter-terrorism training is set in. Atreus appraises the new continent I manufactured and inquires as to my involvement, but I plead the fifth as we engage in father-son bonding that made us all forget about the fact Kratos was a serial killer.
All right.
While encumbered by my descendant, he shows sympathy for our human enemies, but I advise him to steal his heart, for they won't think twice before sending the RPG round sourced from Pakistan at his location. We enter some mineshaft, another trivial puzzle, being educated on the bucket's role as an offering to the gods meant to bless the crops with rain, but I activate my inner dog. After climbing some sort of runic rock, we reach the peak of our redneck home and find the protective barrier of trees tampered with in a certain location. Wonder who was responsible.
I do not know.
He blames the past wife, which has to at least increase the fable immorality scale by a tiny bit, but we can argue the far-reaching philosophical implications of blaming the dead for our issues another time. There's work to be done.
How long will it take to get to the mountain?
I do not know.
Before winter falls?
I do not know.
After continuously sprinkling assault on my enemy, holy shit, never mind, that's a felony. Definitely a technique Londoners are familiar with after the constables begin cracking down on the acid drive-bys. The ops, knowing they can't get near my brawn and peak chiseled TCLR subscriber body, opt to instead rely on improvised explosive devices, but my spider sense allows me to dodge them whilst also obliterating their frail bodies. Atreus begs for my approval afterwards, but Kratos in his infinite child-rearing wisdom opts to use this weakness to convince the kid to lure himself out as bait.
I can do that.
Securing a no-contact relationship in my son's future, absolutely brilliant. If you can't get the milk, raise your son to get the milk. Nothing short of excellence from this slayer of pussies. Atreus surprises me with his literacy, which is more than can be said for Kratos, who's out here proving he's challenger when it comes to war, but mentally challenged in the battlefield of lexicons, truly constructed in an alternative manner. But before I can contact Uncle Ruckus to aid us in Kratos' future educational endeavors,
Read, nigga, read!
I sense a disturbance in the story. I am unable to damage the Night King's forces with my axe. How the fuck is turning it into an ICBM any different? Rarely matters how I do it, however, as my fists are of military grade, so much so even Biden's already sent multiple emails communicating his intentions to offer an all-expenses-paid trip to Ukraine. The heir asks for advice and I tell him to slowly aim down the barrel sights and fire only when he knows he can hit. Also, robbing tombs is ethical, especially when they give you magical spells.
Whoa! How'd you do that?
Desecrating the dead boy.
The little kid runs off to the precariously unhinged bridge, but despite Kratos' pleas, his successor refuses to listen, whipping out the Wii and a round of Just Dance until... Well, third time's the charm. Boys, for my depression...
Sorry.
I reach over due to the brilliance of Kratos not computing that if the 11-year-old made the bridge weak, his body born of chiseled obsidian would make the thing completely collapse. A true Einstein of our generation. But before we can become the source of manic PTSD episodes every time Atreus sees a belt, we realize we've fallen through the world to China and its terracotta army.
Not dead, not dead!
I always knew there was something more nefarious going on. Why else would they craft an army of statues? Who the fuck you gonna scare with that? Crows? Do your ops in the Three Kingdoms have automatinophobia? It would have made more sense had they all emerged from their chrysalis at once. However, their lack of brain function lent itself well to my homicidal streak, as I show why I'm the leading cause of death behind heart disease.
Look at this.
Ah, yes, how could I forget that line? One of my favorites, in fact. A classic, please. Allow me. Pillage, rape, Vinland Saga, dragon boats. Thank you. Do I look like I can read free healthcare to you?
This used to be a marketplace.
I'm sure the local populace was well versed in merchandising death. Afterwards, we are surprised by a loud sound emanating from the walls, and despite expecting a giant titan to stare over with the intent of humanity's destruction, instead a Draugr who's been pumping iron at the gym while simultaneously pumping steroids through his needles emerges. After spending the equivalent of the entire Mesozoic era attempting to whittle down his health, or more show up, as Kratos seemingly has had enough of this shit, picking up the thick Draugr with 2 C's and using his persistent health bar like a battering ram, and after challenging the survivors to a quick game of baseball, I strike out the side, allowing me and my son a moment of respite. Climbing the remnants of Wall Mario, we hear a strange sound that makes me wrangle between running away or holding my sausage hostage, finding a witch straight out of Warhammer 3 Total War. The problem with this personification of a Reddit moderator leaving its habitat for its yearly 10 minutes of vitamin D is that she is protected by the god of domestic abuse himself, preventing my hits from landing, not unless I get Atreus to shoot first, as he is a marksman with the heat, allowing me to bite off chunks of her health bar, powering through the quite poisonous airborne asbestos and then repeating the process. The boy continues attempting to extract information out of me, information I don't have, as I find myself face to face with another steroid user, whose health bar looks like he picked a fight with Mike Tyson and evidently lived to tell the tale. Judging by the game's earlier tutorial on health bars, I had a better chance trying to take down Senator Armstrong in comparison, with not even my supersonic fisting enough to counteract this affront to God. Subsequently, proceeding divine intervention intervening on my side, I pilfer his valuables along with offerings to the god of damage sponges, as we locate the bridge that will guide us to our destination. After dismembering more valuable ancient artifacts, we locate an orgy of who's who, including Hungry, the stone golem with an 8 elixir cost on Clash Royale, Odin, Thor, and even the world serpent, whom I'm assuming is this image, which looks like 8 different tapeworms, Power Rangered, mecha suited up. Well, Thor seems incredibly capable. Let's pray we don't have to face him anytime soon. Oh god, turn back. He doesn't make cringe PG-13 jokes. He molested me with my axe. Atreus tries convincing me of his shooting tendencies, but Kratos knows best, explaining to the young Shiraki that if we encounter men, he will not intervene, and instead watch as his father hits him with the Greek special. Considering the Greeks enjoyed mass-producing water slides for their fecal content, I'm beginning to question whether Kratos should have offered the stranger some X-triangle instead of initiating continental drift. Following soon after, another Revenant puts me on skates, this time flanked with support. I lose control for a brief moment and add 500 to 700 years on my paroled prison sentence, improving my draft stock on the FBI's most wanted list.
All these dead. Think it's safe in there?
My brother and Zeus, you truly believe any of them strike more fear in us than a trailer parker with dilated pupils? After settling his trepidations, we've seemed to unfortunately walked into Amber Heard's old stomping grounds, leaving me to wish I could throw an open bottle of chlorine gas instead of this chemical attack as her army of Twitter defenders jump out, no doubt already used to the biochemical waste assaulting their nostrils. Seeing as how we're at an insurmountable disadvantage, they begin starting the fire before we can even converse as Atreus' 3 neurons are able to formulate a connection and a response to their words before the melee starts. Unfortunately, it seems like we will end up as meat after all. New meat in Guantanamo, no doubt collecting convictions like Pokemon cards, even penalty of death will be seen as too lenient. They'll force us to sit through 24-hour repeatings of Nikocado mukbangs as I shudder at what is in store if we get seized now. What? Atreus? Oh, no, man, sorry, I couldn't, well, it seems like you're dead. Yeah, well, third time is the charm. I return to see my worst fears realized as my seed survived the death sentence and is shell-shocked at having to murder another human whilst Kratos quickly attempts to lend support through experience. Regrettably, I forget the Night King still roams these streets and everyone rises up as this previously devoid of color arena turns into an acid trip, leaving Kratos in these hands to subdue the Smurf army.
They came back.
Extraordinary deductive reasoning, Atreus. Nothing gets past you, does it? I send Atreus over the top, and after about 7 or so attempts of attempting to get him to let down Rapunzel's hair, I decide enough is enough, and a good beating should suffice as I send out a homing missile not even a chunkla could hope to match in accuracy. I decide it's hopeless, pondering out loud whether it would be better to hand him over to the meth-ridden Twitter star with brain atrophy, shocking him back to working order as Kratos gives Atreus some fatherly advice, seeking to educate him that feeling empathy is some pussy shit on gang and that homicide is the way to roll in these streets where Geno variant is impractical as my words appear to have gotten through to the evidence of my abhorrent pullout game. We hear some sort of argument in the distance, making our way to what looks to be an aborted Smurf who looks like he registers a strong 6 on the Richter scale, attempting to get his camel-donkey hybrid on its feet. The man who can identify pepper spray by taste doesn't appear shocked at us appearing at his backside, although on closer inspection it should be us, fearing his 4-foot, 125-pound balding frame. Truly built different, a specimen of our century. Atreus seems to have discerned something in the distance. He discerns right as Brock takes a liking to the kid, no doubt terrified he misgendered him, but I assure Brock his Twitter is still safe as the giant dodo bird is let off by what I can only assume to be an animal whisperer. The Smurf tries a new form of scam, telling Kratos the axe is what he and his brother made, and if we give it to him, he can use it as a down payment to buy another, better axe. But before Kratos can seek to inform the proper authorities about this blatant scam,
there's a rune in the shape of a fork under the grip.
His brother appears to have suffered damage to his frontal lobe as the Smurf claims to possess all the talent and will be more than enough to work on the axe himself, upgrading it and even purchasing some of his wares. Draugr appears as Atreus runs behind the little blue man who no doubt will make the attempt to get the 11-year-old to share his bed while I'm distracted. Fortunately, he won't have the time as a sufficiently upgraded Kratos benevolently bestows a bill for a prostectomy on the Draugr through manual methods. Afterwards, we thank the man for his expertise expertise on constructing instruments of war and make our way to the mountain while he returns our thanks with the showing of some naming custom his people are well known for. Kratos lets Atreus off with a warning for not sliding against the monsters prior, but the next time Kratos will himself speed up the process of puberty by dropping his balls early. This acts as a Swiss Army knife with medical procedures after all. After what could be interpreted as pedophilic harassment, we get caught in a fight mid-puzzle as I have to leave the axe for the spinning axle while Kratos flexes his kung fu. After locating an additional chest, I yelp in joy at having the third apple and an increased health bar, but I'm more than a bit enraged at the fact it's instead some Nordic liquid hallucinogen, meant to sharply increase my rage's effectiveness. I have no idea how it performs this action, since I've seen bigger busts in Paw Patrol, but I store the lean for later. Despite the disappointment, we make our way to a gorgeous view as Kratos almost takes his fatherly responsibility seriously, but is still more than a bit invested in attempting to get it right a third time. We arrive to a door where someone has offered up a riddle in the cauldron, and I do what I do best, pulling every and any handle I see, getting this saucer that wouldn't look out of place on an LSD simulator moving. And after using my axe to align the word, Atreus reads as
Hammer.
Of course, Vin Diesel hasn't steered me wrong yet, writing that answer in the sand with no regard for the consequences. A wrong answer would entail as we unlock the Chamber of Secrets. We find hoof prints of a boar, deciding now is good a time as any to sharpen the boy's hunting skills, or failing that, a severing of all fatherly responsibilities. That's quite the large boar. The cult leader who stylizes himself a god gets given the Kratos special. He's essentially the same as the cyberpunk character creator on growth hormones from before, except now possesses a fairly problematic ability, wanking at the speed of sound and launching a barrage of flaming semen at our location, which we have to perform evasive maneuvers for whenever we catch whiff of that iconic jingle. But aside from that, I rearrange his skeletal structure rather easily. After that successful homicide, I take his heavy runic attack for myself, add some rune sockets, and this is where the retardation from yours truly comes in. Truly a masterful performance. My lack of brain activity has initiated a need for me to start live streaming games I'm going to play in the future. It just seems the best option. I'm gonna play these games anyway, might as well use the footage capture process to get some content, and also so that if in the future I do anything as dumb as not realizing these requirements here are under additional bonuses and not the requirement for the spell itself. Barring that lifeline, I spent most of this game not equipping any aforementioned skills. Perhaps I should seek out Uncle Ruckus after all.
Read, nigga, read!
I was able to select my third and final apple, increasing my muscle mass beyond reasonable proportions.
What they need to mimic a fraction of our power.
We vault into a colder area of the mountain and locate our target, point blank just pleading to be peeled into strips over a fire. Despite my perfect placement, the boar unfortunately made the arrow bounce off its hide, subverting our expectations, being too thick with 3 C's to pierce.
Could the boar be a fursuit?
What do you think?
After some deliberating, we deem it is in humanity's best interests to hunt it down as we trail the wretched creature, arriving at a village, or rather what was a village, before they all came down with a case of Game of Thrones syndrome, very serious. Giving a brief summary on the pathogenesis of the disease, soon after the dogshit that was Season 8 of Game of Thrones, it appears that a large subsection of the biggest fans, the ones who cratered the supply of Jon Snow Funko Pops and looked at the uncomfortable Daenerys sold into slavery scene with tears running down their cheeks. Not for the trafficked victim's predicament, being sold into a loveless marriage for an alliance with France, but jealousy, gazing at the night sky and demanding God answer why it couldn't be them instead of Jason Momoa, and so they developed fever, nausea, hypothermia, the realization that the Night King was right and became his loyal servants. Now let's take a look at our leading GOT syndrome expert for a cure.
ما هو علاج هذه الأمراض النفسية؟ الضرب.
We creep on the greatest embarrassment of the human race and...
Yes!
Do not lose it.
I do believe Kratos' exasperation is showing.
Where are you?
Hurry, father!
Probably wasn't the greatest idea to send a small child out on his own through some sort of Nordic fog. Soldier or not, he lacks proper experience. As we try to solve this Captain Crunch maze on a box, it appears that a woman has found him and is preparing to cook him in a stew as we speak. Finally reaching a clearing and finding Atreus conversing with a Skid Row meth head who's gotten to the point of addiction where she hears voices from inanimate objects. Well, you know, studies show crystal meth isn't that much worse than alcohol. She quickly employs my help to nurse her friend and asks why we shot the last colored rhinoceros.
Target practice.
Target practice.
I tried to stop him, using those exact words even, but it was a hopeless situation for me. Go green. After coming to understand my position, the woman whom I'd consumed the corn out of her feces just to say we had dinner together instructs me to take 2 arteries and hold them together. But we're given the same treatment to the no doubt abundant gore as we did to the Kratos sex tape. While the witch casts a spell, hopefully one to heal the boar, and not one to make me subservient to her every whim. You know, let's think about that.
You're a witch.
Nothing gets past you, does it? Trying to throw off your dogmatic reasoning is like trying to avoid racial slurs while a colored basketball player in Boston.
I can't finish the healing here. My home is just beyond the trees there.
Oh.
Boy, you're going hunting. Do not come back till you catch a griffin. My stamina is unmatched. I can press X and O all day, baby. After shouting gracias to the woods, a path opens up where I carry the boars. Atreus tells the witch Mom died, scary man following us, taking her ashes to the highest peak. Kratos likes getting rid.
Boy.
Giving the signal for Atreus to tell her about that time I saved 5,000 people after their boat crashed into an iceberg and I managed to swim out 50,000 nautical miles and tug the boat back to safety using nothing but my teeth and textbook paddle stroke form. As my odyssey is cut off as we get to the magic treehouse.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Half expected the beast to teach me how to take away the Fire Lord's bending. Maybe then the strange knockoff of Far Cry 5's main villain will die and leave us in peace.
Quickly.
What did you do to him for him to avoid the house like that? Her fallopian tube is in all likelihood an overseas colony of hog sperm at this point.
You live alone?
It's better this way.
Oh.
Yeah, my father doesn't like people either.
Boy.
He may be doing me a favor. This witch has enough red flags to recreate the Soviet Union. She instructs the boy out to collect 2 ingredients from the garden.
Oh.
While I begin unbuckling my belt.
Oh, you're a god.
That's quite the kink. Trust me, upon seeing my TCLR subscriber enlarged cock, you'll thank me king of the god.
Not of this realm, but there's no mistaking.
I think she knows. Wouldn't be the first time Kratos has Ted Bundy'd someone. She inquires if the boy knows, and I tell her to shove it, preferably in a place where we can both derive pleasure from, but before that, she warns me that the gods don't like outsiders, and I'll have to explain to the boy why Odin and Thor are tag teaming us in the octagon. Regrettably, I believe I blew my chance as she sends me outside to pick Lamb's Crest. Kratos' face says it better than I could.
Fine.
I grab the flower and go to help the boy. Would be a lot easier if you had a knife, right? He tries his best to sound disappointed, which works, and Kratos leaves before he can show him his 5th limb isn't the only one with god-imbued powers. Returning with spoils in hand, we help the witch mix her magic potion, healing the boar, and Kratos, enraged he will not be able to tap a bevy of PS3 buttons, forces us to leave, but not before she can cast a spell on us. I do not like it in my butthole.
You want solitude? This mark will hide you from...
After promising not to stick it up my ass, I let her touch me and my boy's neck, granting us protection for our long journey ahead. Showing us a chamber underneath the lion turtles... Hold on. The energy bender has used it as his pocket pussy, hasn't he? She grants a compass and locks the door from the other side as we leave on positive terms, but nothing else.
You cock-blocked me, boy.
Prime Kratos, what up? Squidward Tentacles wants the smoke. That kind of looks like sperm, doesn't it?
Do not touch the water.
Why?
Because I don't want to have to build a new Lego set to save your ass. We pinpoint a boat as it seems the witch was prepared for her lion turtle to discover the sexy new houses hitting the market and prepared accordingly. We get some lore on the kid and how Atreus was so sick as a kid, 1 molecule of tetanus would be enough to shut down his whole immune system, let alone leave the bed. The boy views viruses with the same disdain James Harden does to spending more than 1 season with the team.
We flow into seawater.
How do you know?
Do you not smell it?
If that smells the sea, the sea stinks.
It's not quite the sea, per se. After confirming the turtle was and is still a degenerate, holy shit, I've never seen so much they even sunk Thor.
Did she speak of one who could feel no pain?
Oh, that sounds like Baldur.
Baldur.
Well, that's quite unfortunate. Let's hope Baldur stays dead. We arrive at a statue that instructs us to throw our weapons into the water, but there's no way anyone is stupid enough to fall for that.
The axe did not return.
I have prime real estate to sell you, a bridge overlooking the opulent San Francisco area. We get a cost-effective water slide, but everything comes with a price. And this joyride seems to be asking for our souls as payment.
World serpent.
I don't want to know what it's imbued with, but the boy seems a lot more calm than he should be as the serpent lets out a few sounds one could mistaken for gibberish from a child, learning how to locomote his vocal cords for the first time, and judging from the smell, it seems he isn't against the lion turtle's hobbies. After the serpent leaves, we realize his mere presence caused the water level to rise. My goodness, throw this thing into the Atlantic and its devastation would make nuclear weapons seem little more than flashy fireworks.
He's so big he's wrapped around the whole world and bites his own tail.
An exaggeration.
Okay, it seems girthy enough to do just that, considering this weapon of mass destruction could sink Manhattan by taking a dive. Arriving at the dock after a short climb up to what I believe to be the remnants of Atlantis, we conclude we're the first beings here in decades, planting our flag and securing this landmass for the glory of the Queen.
If it isn't the bearded beaver, it is sexy. Have I got something for you too?
How the fuck did you get here? After going where no man has gone before and almost enraging Kratos.
What do you think he wants?
To test our patience.
The little blue man who spends his free time insulting women for not wanting to shag his Oxford definition of the metabolic syndrome looking ass instructs us not to let the government get wind about his lack of paperwork and taxes, which I accept of course, finding a kindred spirit, and in return he gifts me some sort of mystical stone, apparently used for fast travel to this place but not the other way around. Brock's brilliant business acumen shines again. Give them a way to enter your shop and then trap them for the rest of eternity and collect the insurance when they decease. A true captain of industry. We return to the pathway leading up to the mountain and get onto the Taliban Express. On top there is a horn and it seems that Kratos is homophobic, which, considering his Greek heritage, is like the James Charles calling Nikocado gay. But he insists that no blowing will take course today, and despite Atreus' valid comeback, Kratos' inquiry on his back talking proves an effective remedy to his product of a good thrust's questions. He seeks to make it up to the boy as they bond by assaulting the local wildlife, as any father-son duo worth its salt should, and it even seems Atreus has evolved into just being an ass bitch. Removing the pussy moniker, although I could still take these guys by face-rolling the keyboard. Opening into an inner chamber, we're introduced to a tapeworm that looks like it attempts to enter your butthole rather than leave, giving us quite the conundrum to solve. Our tracking skills would prove effective here if we were hunting World of Warcraft players, but Kratos' axe is for more than just taking fathers away from their children. Make no mistake, it's still primarily utilized for the former, with the recently orphaned tapeworms as an example. Entering the foothills, at least I think that's what that says, I'm not fluent in dyslexia. We find another dwarf, this time without the Kenshi color selector, as Half Bulla here notices the axe not wielded by its intended owner and wants to fight me for...
Somewhat displeased if it turns out that...
Oh my god, look at that technique. Perfect form. I wouldn't want to mess with this peak boxing specimen. We fortunately managed to explain to him the circumstances of my wife's death before he uses his evident affinity in every martial art to wipe the floor with us using nothing but his pinky toe. He gets his own mini character arc over the course of 3 seconds before Atreus counters with, "Who asked?" shattering his confidence, but saving him from the fate of everybody who's given a half-assed backstory. In fact, he should thank the boy for saving his life. He insists that he needs to fix the act of vandalism his brother perpetrated on the axe, letting us know what he thinks of said smurf, no doubt hoping he takes a haircut with a 12 gauge, although his lack of a stomach for blood really has him in the wrong profession. Buddy over here looking like Oppenheimer. Wait, You're telling me the thing I created is being used for its designed purpose? Honey, get the noose. He may be better than Brock after all, considering he secured a resurrection stones which will help revive Kratos in the unlikely scenario someone is able to get the better of him. Immediately thereafter, getting assaulted by all manner of creature, being forced to commit animal atrocities so great even PETA's telling us we're taking it too far. But after that genocide of a native species for sport, Kratos reminds the kid not to get too nosy, getting a second drink inside me gullet, as I feel the sudden urge to test how far I can kick my son begin to overtake me. After eliminating some mustard gas, we find the source, a witch with her pH balance off whack, and as I get to using my hands, I forget my axe was elsewhere, preventing the Reddit stank from poisoning the battlefield beyond livable proportions, and managed to return it last second, but not quick enough, succumbing to my injury. The kid asks if he can hold his mother's ashes for the last leg, but Kratos, being the unempathetic...
She meant more to me than you anyway.
What?
I mean, you did spend quite the protracted amount of time securing cigarettes.
It would serve you to stop talking.
While I remove a stone conspicuously put here for no apparent reason, the kid stares off into the distance, coming to terms with his own Well, I can see why the stone was placed there, as the door leads to Skyrim, with the frost troll who stays posted on the road to High Hrothgar bursts through before showing Atreus he can catch these hands too. After a case of fisting goes horribly wrong, I am able to salvage the situation, holding the animal in place while the kid and me hit him with the 1-2. Not before we're greeted to a live audience cast, half expecting Sam Pepper to pop up and say camera's right there. However, the troll surviving a headbutt to the pointy end of my axe was not the host I expected. It was at this moment I realized the rotting Draugr were the Taliban going incognito, as their signature move leads to many undesirable effects such as amputation and death through explosion. Not to worry, I still perform my fatherly duties, leaving my kid to fight the troll while I take care of the unnamed goons who die in one hit. After my kid is on the brink of death, I activate Predator mode, unleashing a bevy of fists, stunning the ferocious beast before using him as an environmentally conscious vehicle, one that'll assuredly replace diesel if EVs fail to deliver, although due to some minor, albeit still complications of assaulting every passerby on the sidewalk, we're still trying to get approved for testing. While atop him, I pull out a weapon even the Geneva suggestion is rallied against, giving him a double wet willy goodness. This hostile act causes him to blindly assault his comrades as instincts take over consciousness, leaving him alone as I finish this dish prepared by Chef Kratos. We eventually move into the previously blocked doorway that the troll rudely interrupted us from, expecting High Hrothgar, and, well, we're not that far off. After marveling at the sight of the mountain, Kratos reveals to us his oft-hidden empathetic side.
Wonder if Sindri knows his sky mover is tangled with roots up here.
I doubt it.
So how are you going to get it to work?
I do not care.
He has such a way with words.
Truly a man of the people. Arriving at some sort of primitive assisted suicide device, I deem it better to jump into the results of the obvious squid that's just pleasured itself onto the mountainside. As Atreus wishes for his fairy godmother, it appears in the form of a woman who has been evidently stalking us, no doubt after accessing classified tapes of Kratos, repeatedly playing Dance Dance Revolution on the PS3 controller. She can't break through the smoke, as only the light of Alfheim is enough to deconstruct it, second only to the light of a true tclr subscriber, but I deem it appropriate to play along with this game and not show my true form. She asks if this is really necessary, and before Kratos could show her his years of combat experience honed from beating his wife, Atreus saves us from that admittedly not optimal solution. Kratos wants to know why she is helping us.
Maybe I see more of myself in you than I'm willing to admit.
Appeal to emotion. Why ad hominem? You're not even saying it. Sunk cost fallacy. The witch who looks like a tap X on that wretched ass side quest would require a gas mask as a prerequisite leads us to the crane where her poisonous stench assaults the vines so brazenly I can only deduce the pathogenesis of the stench entering your respiratory system exhibits similar side effects to downing an entire bottle of cyanide. We make to glean information about the world serpent and why he was in the water chilling for centuries with no motion, showering, nor practicing any hygiene. Asking her, since one would surmise she's an expert at this type of behavior, but shockingly, the woman has no idea. He just sat there, posted for Thor for a few centuries after an earth-shattering battle. My goodness, his power may rival my own, as he even allowed Thor to escape. Like the pussy-ass bitch he is, might I add, yearning for the opportunity to run his fade come Ragnarok. Atreus starts name-dropping left and right in a last-ditch effort as it becomes clear why he cock-blocked me before, discovering the serpent speaks an out-dead lexicon. Arriving at a dead end as she whips out her tool and shows us what the power of a switch holds. Well, to be more fair, it is some light of Alfheim on the go, providing us a stable, if not nausea-inducing pathway to cross. We start talking about the crypts and bloods of Norse mythology and how Thor and Odin are the bad gods while the others are good, inciting Kratos to respond quite harshly, but it is a given he'd act that way considering he ran up to Zeus's block with a bunch of Attack on Titan cosplayers looking to drive by on the entire Olympus pantheon. This entire bridge is a portal to the Nine Realms before, of course, this world went to shit and everyone fled or hid, making Halloween every day for the last couple millennia. She briefs us on our next task as Thor shows his godly strength, lifting an axle and then turning the bridge through sheer force. I am feeling the pressure on my prostate increase. We are in a precarious position right now. After numerous attempts at cock blocking for selfish reasons earlier, the boy seems to be helping me, relenting due to the fact the age difference is a much larger issue than previously thought. After realigning the bridge, we get a nice exchange between father and son.
You didn't hurt your back, did you?
I did not hurt my back.
Heartwarming, really. We enter inside to find Brock missing, no doubt evading what he thought to be a visit from the IRS security forces as the last vestiges of magic are used from the bow. Before the swamp-ass body sprays only customer gifts the remnants to Atreus to eventually replenish for further use. The gist of this elaborate inter-universal travel that has Elon Musk bricked up harder than an 18th century chimney is using a tree to travel from realm to realm. She bestows upon me a Bifrost used to aid in our extensive LARP of travel between realms that acts as a glorified light of Alfheim battery, going on about us living in the same plane of existence as other planets and the history of the tree whose name was derived from Snoop Dogg while off his record-breaking 56th consecutive blunt and decided to yick drizzle my nizzle and all that. After informing us Odin cast a spell on her to prevent her from traveling realms for her failure to enact her duties as part of the harem, she gives a long-winded and elusive explanation as Kratos tells her to speak English or shut up and hand him the manual.
You were looking for a more practical answer.
Yes.
We need a rune for each realm, and she grants us Alfheim, but we can't get the one to Jotunheim as 100 years ago after the Fire Nation attacked. The giants took the tower and disappeared, informing us after the fact we are stuck and can't go back until we capture the light with the Bifrost. And what I can only assume is an elaborate imprisonment tactic, arriving at a tulip festival if my prediction is correct. However, there seems to be a problem. The light appears to be dimming, a light bulb after a few years of use, if you will, right before the Wicked Witch of the Forest starts getting sucked up like a vacuum, giving us vague explanations before disappearing. Kratos, however, moves quickly to reassure Atreus of her safety.
She's not dead. Is she?
Not likely.
He has such a way with words.
After solving a minor severing puzzle, Atreus naively believes sharing and communism has a place in our utopia. Before we conclude, the Light Elves are getting slapped up in a rout, observing the results of 2 fingers on either side. In an all-natural prostate examination, the Dark Elves are giving the Whites. These Black Elves enrage me with picture-perfect blocks and parries to the point where I was almost forced to pull out Old Reliable, not seen since the days of Black Ops 2. Despite their loud objections on letting us go on our merry way, we push through as the kid mistakenly believes I called for him. How the hell is Sinbad or whatever his name is here? He claims dwarves have their secrets, but after a demonstration of snapping a twig, he does admit to some magic being behind it before upgrading my weapon and armor. Getting onto a boat where the kid is suffering a return of the psychosis that plagues him, harvesting some nizzles for CDR. After a 3rd schizo episode, he goes into a manic seizure about the voices and whatnot. Not to worry, Kratos, I'm a professional. I prescribed 546 grams of crack. I know that'll potentially cause some minor side effects like overdose, but the voices will be dealt with. The remnants seem to have set up a base camp, no doubt looking to continue the war through guerrilla tactics, but Kratos will not join the revolutionaries, eventually reaching the lake of... Well, I personally call it a sunset more than anything else. We disembark from our vehicle and hike to the entrance, but it was all an elaborate ploy to trap us, where they locked off the base and ambush us with some of Aquaman's finest marines. They prove more difficult than Draugr even, but Kratos shows a new technique for killing these pesky enlarged insects, using Poseidon's trident where a fly swatter might fail. After moving some arches, Atreus deduces them to be some sort of ruin, riding out on the boat to another miniature replica of the Sahara, but before we can decipher the riddle, I may have found out that Nicholas Cruz is the second voice in my son's head, as Kratos informs him that genocide is based and in fact red-pilled, leading to a disagreement in ideology beginning to form a rift. It seems we're getting all the goods here, as Kratos' next move is to go to Egypt, using Moses as a way to entrench on Anubis' turf. On the descent, he casually drops that he heard Mother. No biggie, as the largest and seemingly leader of the Wasp Hive shows up, making us essentially fight for every inch on the pathway. We eventually make it to an elevator and descend a few meters as Kratos threatens his son if he ever brings up Mother's voice again. I was able to keep his mouth shut, that and the Starling Beasts, who were given 20 to life for minor offenses, I'm sure. It seems I may have miscalculated. I have never felt more inclined to hit shift middle mouse, getting into a Spartan rage where I begin fisting everything in sight, looking like Mike Tyson off LSD, dislodging and rolling a damn statue onto the Wasp King as he barely makes it out alive while Atreus lets loose a bevy of arrows. His paper-cutting technique proved more effective from before. We approach the inner sanctum, sparing a thought for the brave witch, who I'm sure is doing just fine. Being sucked into a vacuum cleaner like she was in a Magic School Bus episode is completely normal for witches, I'm sure. After approaching some sort of inner sanctum, the wasps, knowing they can't beat us, place a few blocks of iron and a carved pumpkin to summon the iron golem who treats the wasps like villagers. Despite my inexperience with this new Pokemon, I figure out the light emanating from his chest is quite similar in function to a hardened strike true, collecting massive amounts of valuables. We find the source of the light blocking the main bridge, freezing it and chopping down the hive, reopening the bridge in a path to genociding an evil species, taking a trolley to the top and jovially hooting and hollering at the top of our lungs. While Atreus did, Kratos does his best Geralt of Rivia impression. Realizing that in fact the door is ornamental and we have to find another way through, I'm not even surprised to find Sanjay.
You killed an ancient?
Yes.
Was it difficult?
Yes.
Is that all you're gonna give me?
Yes.
Truly a master at the human dialect. I wonder how he rizzed up 2 women enough to give him children.
You're cute.
Yes.
Baby.
Yes.
We make our way inside, where the general of this anthill appears immune to my ice axe, leaving a bevy of questions and issues, almost forcing me back, but upon seeing the sight of enemies that still breathe, well, I can't turn back now, can I? Another pep talk from Kratos preceding our massacre of the native furry population, sending the ecosystem into an irreversible decline. We approach some seamen that act as suicide bombers, an effective form of contraception, blowing up the egg before it can be used, but with my being the proverbial egg in this scenario, the result leaves a less than stellar impression. Atreus starts shit-talking the robed light users for failing at their job, and I would say I raised him better, but considering Kratos seldom says a sentence that isn't or boy. He likes that last one a lot. I'd say my previous claims hold no weight. We find the source of the light covered up in muck and a robed bug who seems to have chosen suicide by lacking a firearm, which leaves Atreus quite distraught. After enacting mob justice on the perpetrators of this murder, we repeat the same course of events as the last hive and then a third, as all the pathways are beginning to restore. After practicing my trick shots and getting an invitation from FaZe Clan, yeah, I think I'll pass. We move into the central beehives.
I don't think we're supposed to be in here.
Quiet.
We're not supposed to be here? Well, this is awful. Seems we need to turn back. Sorry, Kratos. Rules are rules. Stupid ass. After spending quite the long amount of time determining whether they do or don't make honey, I put my son on my back. Nothing changed there, and scold him for caring more about his friend's life than our goals, as I get grabbed by what I believe to be a prototype of the Avatar movie character, letting Atreus deal the killing blow to get his feet wet in insecticidal activities.
Oh, so sticky.
Well, that either satisfies my question on honey production or that satisfaction has already taken place by a third party. After another unwarranted result, I break through the comb, saving my boy before regretting it shortly afterwards as he thinks we are at a summer camp or something. Shut your bitch ass up, this is an infiltration.
Jump, boy!
Well, my outburst may have done more harm than Atreus. No matter, letting emotions out is healthy, of course, as I move like a knife through butter, a chainsaw through a tree, lead through bodies, a TCLR subscriber's penis through any woman, truly a masterful display. Eventually crumbling their structures and reaching the light of Alfheim, rescuing it and subsequently this entire temple and perhaps world. As Atreus is hearing the call of the void and would have succumbed had it not been for the defense mechanism of really hot on the pain receptors, I force him to stay here. But
I just hate to see a child go unbeaten.
Giving him the axe as a last resort, correcting him when he thinks he owns this before testing to see if the water's cold, and jumping through. Into the God of War 3 color palette, while Faye takes her ashes, and I think she's trying to get me to follow her. Hearing Atreus be less than pleased that he is stuck with me.
He doesn't want me and he never will.
Well, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned third time so much around him.
It should have been him. Do you hear me? Him, not you.
It should have been him, not me! It's not fair!
But sensing my presence, he assures her he only kids, just in case I'm listening in a haha unless moment. More importantly, just as I'm about to get my first X squared triangle tap dance in for what has probably been months.
Wait! Come back! No! No! What have you done? Why did you do that?
This man is the constable.
I saved you! You were trapped in there! I waited, but you wouldn't come out! So I pulled you out!
Bro is really against me trying a third time. Bro probably saw me trapped and wouldn't come out, so he pulled out for me. No, Dad, you're stuck. I'll pull you out of mother. You know, I think I'm starting to sympathize with his anger and have indeed come around to his line of reasoning. After a rage-filled shout, no doubt laced with copious amounts of daddy issues, he speaks calmly right after as if nothing happened. Still impressed, he's put on the best raid impression I've ever been witness to. I use the Bifrost to power the witch's bowstring, using it to create bridges without needing taxpayer money this time as we eventually reach the Not-A-Door door and Sand Bowl.
But how do you expect me to reach it?
Step 1, yeet the child.
I go back and snatch a crystal.
You gonna carry that everywhere?
I just might.
Damn, bro. That was mad funny.
The kid retaliates by saying I shouldn't be raiding a secret temple, which earns a stank stare from me while I continue desecrating the corpse. I collect a third drink as it seems my rage has increased enough to where one slap will send my wife into a coma, eventually vaulting him into a higher ledge. While that worked great last time, he proceeds to quickly get the riddle done. I wouldn't have guessed that if given a millennia. Outside, these hooded cultists seem to be ignoring us as their power must have been restored, because last I checked, they were getting the Scorpion Wasp casting couch movie star Kratos collab special. Evading the grasp of King Wasp before taking the elevator down, we enter a detective thriller color palette, but before anyone can get murdered, he killed someone right there! I said before anyone can get murdered. Atreus complains he can't shoot arrows if he can't see, so Kratos just tells him to activate his inner instincts and hear the ops.
I gotta watch the ops, I gotta date the ops, I gotta be the ops!
Kratos goes to grab a crystal and Atreus doesn't think I can. I moved a bridge with my bare hands.
Remain alert and quiet.
We escape the depths and survive this excursion. Oh, we're gonna need quite the number of cans of raid to deal with him. He ends up being quite the admirable foe, as when he isn't using his lightsaber to shoot tri-lasers, he's turning the power off while I sit there swinging wildly, hoping to hit thoraxes and limbs. Eventually whittling its health low enough to grab it by the wings, flip it down, and use its trident as an improvised tool in the prep for emergency heart surgery. Unfortunately, after hitting me with some Klingon...
What did it say?
That we made a grave mistake.
Murder is never a mistake, boy. I do get the boy some runic summons to distract him, as he can now use the power of the spirits to summon wolves, firmly placing the powers of God and anime on his side, an unstoppable force of nature. He inquires as to whether we helped the wrong side, but before I can respond, he gets all defensive, probably thinking I'll gloat, but honestly, his game doesn't answer whether we made the right or wrong choice. All I did was kill whatever the game wanted me to kill. Maybe the black bugs are evil. I mean, they are black colored as opposed to the white color used in most medias to elicit good and evil. Before anyone says that's racist, you're probably right. The product of my giving in to natural instincts gets mad thinking I'm just using him. Not wrong, but scarily accurate mocking aside.
Boy, read this. Boy, what's that say?
Yeah, okay, Kratos stating the obvious isn't making things any better.
If Mom was here...
If your mother was still alive, we would not be here at all.
We get back on the boat now, having saved this formerly desolate land, as the kid asks if I saw the one who shall not be named, and I answer honestly.
No, she was not there.
Not like you would even care if she was.
I'm sensing some dissatisfaction from my offspring. Kratos threatens to give him the square up down special, and how he has to stay focused to keep the 8-year-old from experiencing the honor of being the football Messi used to slap up France like he was a Panzer officer. To his credit, the kid apologizes, and Kratos, knowing he's never had the opportunity of watching him spin by the Greek pantheon's block with a shiny sword, forgives the 8-year-old's outburst. After giving him a cliff notes of what happened in the light, the game dev speaks through him, trying to make me second guess myself. Yes, we did enough. After a crash course lesson in the art of war, Sindri welcomes us back before asking me to look into an abandoned temple where he is certain there is a powerful whetstone the previous owner nearly sacrificed his life to obtain, and I nod, confident in the knowledge that the whetstone will not be moving from its current location. Atreus informs me about the voices and how it wasn't the first time. No, he's apparently an animal whisperer too, as back before when the giant ditto bird was refusing to cross the bridge, well, he explained to him that there were monsters in the trees. Now, considering he didn't seem shaken nor concerned at all that a giant bird was telepathically explaining its concerns to him, tells me that also wasn't the first time he had animal voices in his head. Back onto the bridge, it seems Brock didn't really feel like coming with us to Tinkerbell's home planet, meeting him after we transport back as the kid retells the lore of our adventures and Sindri and new planets, but the Smurf with facial hair both claims he played Super Mario Galaxy as well, and is enraged I let the sibling whose dye pack broke at birth touch our baby, before looking like a fool when it turns out that Sindri is in fact a menace with the blacksmith hammer, molding with some hearsay about consistency, something all Smurfs have leaking from their orifices, I'm told. After that eye-opening biology lesson about little blue men, not the one I'm interested in, might I add, much preferring the answer to my question of will my fucking a Smurf cause my crafting material for a baby to pop out of their mouth in the elusive BJ-VJ combo. We return to the Black Breath while meeting the World Serpent just chilling there, looking all cool and shit. Look at him just vibing. That alone is enough to add him to my boy collection. Let me know when we driving by Asgard. My boy here can give some nasty paper cuts. After adding another one to my collection, we get to see Azula fire skating, and after quickly escaping before the comet shows, we arrive back to Sindri trying to reverse psychology our way into collecting that whetstone. The machine seems to be in working order, which is 100 times better than having to travel through to Skyrim again, and after crushing the boy's hopes and dreams, we arrive to the Black Breath, something which Atreus astutely calls out as I bring out the light of Alfheim and use it like holy water, keeping the evil spirits at bay.
Oral sex, demon. You see oral sex? Look, oral sex. Look. You oral sex. Use oral sex. Let that sperm of that man out. Out, you demon. Out. Let go.
The path ahead appears to be too far for Kratos, a god mind you, to jump despite being less than a foot of blockage as we settle for the much easier task of climbing the mountain with Atreus on our back, telling the story of how the giants disappeared. Now that is interesting. Tell me, how did they do it? Leave no detail untold. Perhaps I can begin looking for the third after all. At the top, after removing some more of the Devil's BO, we come to Anubis chilling and look for another League of Legends inhibitor. Atreus believing the long-gone giants are testing us, it's pretty unbelievable considering they worshipped some sort of deer as their deity. And to be honest, I don't think very highly of the followers of something I can obliterate with my Chevy. The deer must have heard my mocking as it shines a light onto the rock. Yeah, let's see how you like it now. Not exactly the greatest turn of events. I'm fairly certain my reading comprehension barely eclipses a 6th grader's, and my mathematics skills, or lack thereof, would likely have them placing me in an unplanned autism exam right after. Case in point, Atreus laughing at me.
Why do you laugh?
Oh, you're serious.
I am always serious.
For not knowing giants could be normal human individuals. I apologize, I should have known giants weren't actually giant. After nearly emptying my bowels upon seeing another revenant, Kratos congratulates Atreus for not being completely useless this time, an improvement no doubt I proclaim as I struggle to beat revenants on the 2nd easiest difficulty. This entire game they've been shattering my admittedly fragile ankles, hitting me with that slide to the left, slide to the right.
Crisscross! Crisscross!
We discover some unwanted visitors that thought they were Indiana Jones, keying us into the likelihood that there are traps located in the area, but with them already being set off, we passed, quote-unquote, the tree giant's tests by default, discovering he was protecting a library.
How would someone hide a library?
After thinking hard upon whether I should lick the crystallized hard candy, I decide against it, licking some druggers' booty holes instead. We arrive inside to find a claw machine, finally able to ensure that the claw that can't hold onto anything actually holds onto something this time. In Atreus' excitement,
And if we get this unstuck... I think the rope's stuck under that rock.
That was careless.
Bro, you were gonna do the same thing. You had an opportunity to stop him. Why are you acting like you didn't let him fuck up the claw? It's tough dealing with the firebenders, as I wish mid-battle. Man, having some of these skills would be so good right now. Ah well, let's go see if Brock won't provide us with an edge. He does, but not before telling us to piss off in a less flattering way that I'm sure goes over well with the regulars. To be fair though, considering he followed us around into a mountain, I'm certain we're the only regulars he actually has, lest he also arms the Draugr as well, which I wouldn't be surprised. Arming both sides of the conflict is the textbook modern money-making technique, isn't that right, Switzerland? We get to a platform as Atreus disrespects me. I moved a bridge. What can I do to earn your confidence?
And we're stuck. Cards.
That's quite a sharp mind you've got on your shoulders there, Sherlock. You gonna tell me not to throw to Walmart toilet seat next? On second thought, a little reminder every once in a while isn't such a bad idea. Some sort of broken lantern captivates Atreus' attention, which gives me the respite I need to think. Jump on top of the movable platform, and lift the rock off the crane as I can finally grab that teddy bear I've always wanted but couldn't get to the invisible olive oil they use on X videos every time it senses a quarter being inserted. I should have known they had countermeasures to someone entering their claw machine, as a Nordic monster is precisely what I would expect from these fiendish greedy companies. Yarn Farter proves himself about as useful to the claw company's bottom lines as Ancestry.com is to Alabama natives. And after enforcing my masculinity by giving substantial brain damage, I enter rage mode, showing my strength by throwing rocks at the giant till he collapses, and in their insentience, the firebenders, after seeing me giant bend their larger counterpart, still come at me afterwards, lusting like I was an airbender. Sherlock Atreus deduces that the giants not only mined this, but actually lived in here like they were playing Minecraft and really didn't want to punch 50 trees for a house. I play with the claw machine, using it to grab the platform, making sure I jump on top before it leaves, just in case it wants to start cheating again. I will claim the prize this time. We move up a few stories as Atreus finds a non-broken lamp, letting out a prayer to the gods to save Mother, and upon hearing gods, Kratos doesn't respond lest he make to ruin Thanksgiving by talking about how he could molest Joe Biden and he wouldn't even know it. Rick Ross, what are you doing here? Now, I was going to play the entire song, but since YouTube has a time limit to how long you can use somebody else's music before you get demonetized, I'll be saying the first part of this rather grotesque bar on my own. Put Molly all in her champagne, she ain't even know it. If memory serves correct, I believe that's a felony.
I took her home and I enjoyed that. She ain't even know it.
That's quite the bar.
911, what's your emergency?
I'd like to report a crime. The traps up here aren't yet set, and considering our competition played Tomb Raider once and made it their life's goal, I understand why. Probably makes sense why they turned her from to.
Hi, how are you?
Lest the 15 people carrying Tomb Raider merch sales file a class action lawsuit for endangerment by way of malicious down battery. I make my way through the traps as Atreus can just conveniently use the dwarven tunnels they built to avoid said traps, and let me tell you, getting caught in a flamethrower is not the most pleasant of experiences. After hopping on another lift and removing the boulders, we get stuck on the way and ambushed by some burn victims, which we deal with quite hastily.
I almost wish they were harder.
I'm now half expecting a dragon to pop up just to smite him. Well, not a dragon, but a baboon with an Amazonian tribe color scheme isn't much better, as I'm still forced into fisting mode. After dislodging the lift,
I think we're safe now.
boy!
We're almost at the summit. Nothing's gonna stop us.
طيب ما هو علاج هذه الأمراض النفسية؟ الضارب.
After giving the lightning dragon a manicure fails to prove as effective as I thought it would, we end up retaliating with enough hemorrhoid cream to keep it at bay, forcing it to retreat lest it want another taste of this platform, but not before leaving us with a parting lesson on organic chemistry.
Whoa, what was that?
That was your blabber disorder acting out.
طيب ما هو علاج هذه الأمراض النفسية؟ الضارب.
We can utilize some rock candy from the Yggdrasil tree to react as a catalyst to electricity, ending up with the non-organic compound known as C4. Atreus brags like he was on the front lines of the dragon attack, getting to the point where even Kratos is sick of his boasting, but before we can Google directions to the closest orphanage, we hear the sounds of a dear maiden in trouble in the distance. The high-pitched sounds of terror coming from Sindri made him sound feminine enough to bring out Atreus' hormones, but Kratos stops him from the suicidal attempt, saying a prayer for Sindri, and leaving him to his fate, if not for Atreus still wanting to play the hero. We both move to break in opposite directions. Well, not me, because I had no idea what was going on, but eventually I recovered, jumping on its back and shaving off some excess keratin before it nearly swallows me whole. I quickly employ my second strategy of going over a routine dental inspection to test his fear of dentists, but telling it that its diet of raw cattle and carrion is going to pose problems in a couple of decades, enrages it to the point of combat as it spits me out and makes to causing a murder. I walk around helplessly throwing crystals at it, not knowing what to do, until I realize I need the catalyst, waiting for it to spit electricity, causing it to blow itself up. The next round it does the same thing as I continue aiding it in reaching the peak of its hero, Osama bin Laden, and after about 3 tries of me doing the exact same thing, I get bored of abusing the endangered wildlife and make the play to finish it off, dropping the claw machine and sticking it in to make sure no shenanigans are afoot this time before sticking in well past the legal amount of explosive material as Kratos defies the expected hijacker playbook, proceeding to jump off, landing safely while the renewable plane combusts, staring it down while it drops dead around him in a tribute to Kobe. Right in front of Sindri's shop too, the convenience. Sindri's heart starts fluttering, thinking Kratos actually cares, giving the boy some Christmas ornaments as a reward that he claims are straighter than my dick. The absurdity of such a remark leaves neither of us convinced, and with neither of us impressed, he decides to bless us with a magic show, but after the 50th rabbit pulled out of the hat, Kratos' boredom overtakes him, making to leave before Sindri asks for a tooth. Of course! My goodness, how could I forget? I would be remiss and up against the dental code if I let this corpse take his cavities with him to Valhalla. That's not all, as sprinkle some magic dwarf dust onto it and presto, I now get an intercontinental C4, using it quickly afterward to avoid the lesson Sindri seemed so eager to give. Atreus feels confident in our abilities, defeating dark elves, trolls, goblins, car salesmen, everything, feeling himself to be perhaps godly. Upstairs we arrive to Papa Smurf, swearing his nieces to secrecy while tightening his belt, but we catch him in the act, forcing him to stop us, or make the attempt at least, as we enact just punishment on EDP's spirit animal.
Oh, no!
We finally arrive at the summit, noticing Atreus broke his strap, although Kratos shows his ingenuity in the process. This guy is one blacksmith apron and apprenticeship under Brock away from becoming God of the Forge, along with his already established titles of God of War and God of Love, attempting to recreate the Greek pantheon all by himself. The Draugr ambush us on the peak, thinking Kratos would struggle on mountaintops, not knowing that mountains are as synonymous with Greeks as olive oil, hairy-chested men, and Gato. Someone is making some strange No, it can't be. The Sons of Thor, which includes someone I would personally not feel comfortable with letting my pie cool on a windowsill near. Brother would smell it and start floating towards it. And of course, Baldur making the valiant effort of convincing a tree to tell them about my whereabouts. But being a tree, they of course don't get what they're looking for and leave, climbing up after to see what all the fuss was about, as I find the product of Odin after boredom with millennia of women, deciding to see how a tree feels on the old foreskin. The man whose age requires modern carbon dating materials to find out is named Mimir, who claims to be the smartest man alive and knowing everything about everyone. Why do we have the letter E at the end of every word, not doing shit in the English language?
Okay, there are a few gaps in my knowledge.
Smartest man alive who knows almost everything tells us he's been trapped here for 109 years, but we don't have time for his incessant whining. We have to spread Mom's ashes on the highest peak.
Oh, then you've come to the wrong place, little brother.
What?
The highest peak in all the realms is not here in Midgard.
So, where is the highest peak? 2 mountains to the left, or?
It's in Jotunheim, realm of the giants.
No!
Thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe to not miss out on future content. He gives us a vision of the blowjob dead.
You see oral sex? Look, oral sex. Look. You oral sex. Use oral.
Whoopsie. Now behold.
The highest peak in all the realms through the last gateway to Jotunheim, a place that is very much accessible if you were a giant. No, not that kind of giant. Fortunately, he is willing to help us. He just needs us to cut off his head. This form of attempted suicide leaves Kratos in a moral conundrum. However, the Witch of the Woods can surely reanimate him, and if she doesn't, well, it still beats his current life.
He tortures me, you know. Every day, brother.
Plays Baby Shark 12 hours on end at max volume with earbuds.
Baby shark, do-do-do-do-do, baby shark.
Oh. God, we gotta help him. Kratos' sympathies end when the dude says some last words in case the resurrection can't happen, and the longer I wait to tell my son about the secret, the one about my past proclivities donning fursuit. With an extra severed head now firmly attached to my waist, something I'm sure the local law enforcement will be more than understanding of, we conveniently find a teleporter, use it to travel back to Brock's shop, moving through the outsider's world from Dishonored, making sure to leave before the local rat population starts thinking Norse is in season. All the while, Atreus is flabbergasted, Gobblers thoroughly smacked that I beat the god Baldur, almost as if I was a god myself. Returning to Brock, who's on his break, we rudely interrupted, asking us how his brother is doing while working on the axe. After telling him Sindri is getting all the Omega-3 he'll ever need.
I know what he thinks, but he can't hurt.
We make some upgrades and return to the witch through boat this time, arriving back to her cave, hoping her stench can bring back a dead head to spray some axe, and if not...
If she can't bring it back to life, can we keep the head?
No. But you may feed it to the fish.
And get some of our own omega-3 fatty acids. Upstairs, I conduct pest removal services, climbing through the well and arriving at the witch's paradise. Apparently, Atreus can talk with the lion turtle as well, calling him Charlie, and the bitch really needs to do some house cleaning, I know. She looks like the last time she showered, Mason was still thinking about the numbers. Inside, Atreus embraces the witch through pinched nostrils and a protective layer of Febreze, asking if she can reanimate a head. But not before the witch freaks out about the green arrows not being in season and quickly makes to burn them before he's seen in public with last year's stock. Kratos, being the ladies' man he is, as shown previously by his refusal to knock and enter without asking. I believe this variant of man is known as the predator male. immediately shoves the severed head into her personal space. She conducts a thorough inspection before giving her final diagnosis of death, and the cure is to shove some maggots into it and put it in rice for a few seconds. Magically reviving the goat-horned could be classified as a furry after a not exactly pleasant reunion with Mimir in what can best be described as a biological attack.
Good.
Oh.
He tells us she is the god Freya. Odin's ex. You didn't tell us? Odin is already after us. I don't want him to catch me hitting triangle square before he hits us with a circle up down. Hell no, we leaving. Let's go, Atreus. No wonder she smells like she was raised by pigs. If Odin is anything like Zeus, you need the Avengers of World of Warcraft players to stop the god from getting horny at anything resembling a living thing. Atreus asks why we left, and Kratos informs him all gods are evil. They come into our country and steal hardworking American jobs as we move to ask my boy how we can get to his kind, seeing as how he's one of the last giants who, through the sheer power of being my boy, refused to leave the home behind in the giants' version of the Trail of Tears and thought, hell nah, they want to remove me, they're welcome to try. On our way, we make to ask why Freya conducted the equivalent of a Magic Johnson bareback attack on him, but considering Odin's torturing him for a century, he either pressed X triangle before dumping Freya, or Odin's daughter, painting another target on our backs. But that might not be that bad if he can tell us how to defeat Baldur, but his incessant waffling on further adds another thing to the list that Mimir, the self-proclaimed knower of all things, doesn't know, making me question whether he didn't come from a long line of keeping the inheritance in the family, feeding into his ego. But before that pondering can fully commence, we get to the horn on the platform before my boy is summoned. My boy proves himself worthy of the moniker and a generational hater as they start yodeling at each other. As my boy agrees to help us. We need to obtain two things as the serpent guides the bridge to our desired launching point, the travel rune to Jotunheim, and a magic chisel that Mimir knows the location of. Also learning we were about 5 seconds away from breaking the serpent's meticulous dieting because Mimir somehow mistranslated "we need to get to Jotunheim" with "we on Thor's side, you a pussy on gang," followed by a healthy dose of enemy gang signs and opposite colored memorabilia. Mimir tells the tale of why Freya spit on him being the reason she is stuck as a witch in the wood. I'm not even joking, he might have actually been slinging Shemeat with Freya before Odin caught them in the act. That's my leading theory anyways. We get to a spirit who tells us a sad story about how his wife was scattered throughout the land and he really misses her and wants to be reunited, and all we are tasked with is finding her remains right here in this very lake. Shouldn't take longer than 5 minutes. Bring them back to him so the lovers. I'm not reading all that. We open the gate, deal with another troll looking like he's about to sacrifice us to ensure there's enough rain for the crops this year, and pass through while Mimir tells us the story about a large giant who chased after his son right after beating him in the head with more force than the Hiroshima residents had to face in 1945. Somehow getting lost 2 steps outside his home, crossing paths with Thor, who did the only thing you do when you meet a stranger in a very precarious situation, long lost from home. You murder him, dropping the giant onto a village, claiming he meant to do that, after realizing that the villagers were following his ops. We meet oh god, a werewolf, giving me personally rage after seeing one of Twilight's main furries, making the fight nothing short of trivial. Entering a cave and out the other side, we see the remains of the man who caught Thor on the very same day the serpent was caught giving his girl inches, getting quite the gruesome finisher, where Kratos finds where the tongue is attached to the neck anatomically, finding the chisel under his face, albeit under a nuclear bunker made entirely of ice. Kratos, however, has a plan, much to Mimir's dismay. Sindri comes through and gives Kratos a snack, but no one's been able to make Kratos eat his greens since Zeus caught his mother in a sundress, and he isn't about to start yet, stopping the magician's disappearing act midway to continue our mutual relationship of fixing my axe in return for not using his head as a grindstone. After obtaining a new armor set, Kratos tries keying Atreus in on the plan, as Mimir may have gotten a little too desperate after 100 years of not being able to relieve himself. himself. Anyone goes that long, even a dead giant will have you unlocking that Zeus in you. Inside the room, we find Askeladd's right-hand man after the shrooms, which proves to be a tough fight, not least because he tried to launch a fart strong enough to knock out the city. But after donning some gas masks, we were able to fell the Great Warrior. The lore of the giants continues, as during the war between gods, they were just chilling until Odin launched a special military operation to denazify Jotunheim, forcing them to fight despite not knowing what Nazi means. Eventually, we arrive to the top, with Kratos explaining the plan, which involves throwing the hammer down and hoping it lands near the ice where the chisel is. I don't know about this one, Kratos. Inside, we get to what seems to have been a kindergarten lesson about all the seasons, which takes me longer than I care to admit to complete, but eventually we get the platform moving, which proved a critical mistake as we get ambushed by Draugr, forcing Atreus to stop as we have to dispose of them before the timer runs out, lest we recreate Kratos' iconic scene. Eventually, a crack is made, which we use to jump onto and leave the hammer off to the side while catching a ride, plummeting at the speed of sound, almost getting crushed by said hammer as it appears to have worked, nearing the chisel head. Following a non-subtle threat to the head hanging around my groin, we make our way through, hearing the two henchmen Baldur got on sale from Wish, avoiding them and entering a dining hall where the giant's hospitality stays unmatched as we repay the favor by breaking their chandelier and raging the frost giant at our slight of destroying his home, but I turn him into my sex toy, defeating some other minor mobs before arriving at the chisel, deeming it imperative we grab and go before the gods can After our peace overtures fail to yield any results, the little man shows up as we're forced to fight our way out, which shouldn't prove too difficult a task. Their cognitive abilities would give us the option of drawing a tunnel on the wall and allowing the fuckers to smash into it head first. After proving ourselves the superior urbaners, they perform some sort of tribal mating ritual to teleport us into the Darklands, likely to shield our eyes from what I can only assume is a favorite liberal Alabaman pastime. They go to work on some roasts, while the middle school insults are more than enough to get to Atreus' head, as after their incestuous banging, I indulge in some spanking right after. That leads to the unwanted side effect of getting them in the mood to go again, as we shield our eyes and they threaten to murder us all, but it's nice to know that Mimir has confidence in us.
The sons of Thor are welcome to try!
Why are you acting like you're doing anything, Mimir? Just stay sniffing the fumes in my ass and let me know the moment they try to bareback us. Second round, they jump and try to psych us, but it fails to deliver the expected results, as unlike the 11-year-old, I am mature enough to avoid a middle school roast battle. But Atreus isn't, and after the second god threatens to show the kid his mom's photos he got access to for $5.99 a month, Atreus loses it, as it seems that Atreus' mother was everybody's mommy, leaving Kratos to quickly warn Atreus he might be attacking his father, but I can't get through to him, and I'm forced to act, moving in to turn Magni into a screensaver before Modi can show the pictures he got at bargain prices, leaving his jaw to drop, laying there in anaphylactic shock that I would kill someone who was making the attempt to murder me. Oh, the blasphemy. He escapes, but before I can give chase, it appears that I was too late in stopping Modi from showing Atreus the nude photos, as he's left with a high fever and coughing up blood. Goodness, this is worse than I could have expected. He witnessed his mother in lingerie. Will need every medical professional in the realm for this case. Chiseling out a piece of the chisel gives way to a new technique to carve the ruin to Jotunheim and to get past these doors.
You killed Magni.
He was a minor god. Minecraft villagers would have more people conducting funerals for him.
And his father's Thor.
Okay, maybe not minor, all things considered. We make our escape as Kratos finally shows some fatherly love to his son, making to leave before the sky starts falling. The next step is to venture to an underground vault that holds the ruin we need. On the way, Mimir tells us why Freya hates him. The two god factions were at war. Nobody wanted to keep going, so an advisor got peace by marrying Odin to foreign nobility for an alliance with France. That woman was Madonna. who subsequently died of a mysterious overdose of Barbie doll plastics. So he just married Freya. Well, at least their family tree doesn't look like a recycling logo, huh, Kratos? In an act of selfless love to save her people, she makes the alliance with France instead. Inside, Atreus, being embarrassed his father is as literate as the kid who stuttered while reading Cat in the Hat in 3rd grade, attempts to teach me, but we get ambushed. And I'm put under a spell as the middle school insults devolve to something you'd get pissed about around the age of 10. But Atreus has had enough, informing me not to partake in school tomorrow as he charges up the greatest Kamehameha the world's ever witnessed. As the world is saved, hunger abolished, weapons of war demilitarized.
Whoops. I think I broke him.
Let me show you how it's done.
Stay back.
The Spartan rage proved too much for him, and Atreus lies there sick, which I conclude to be very concerning as we now have to carry him to Freya. Mimir, the knower of all things, by the way, thinks that this ailment is from a god thinking himself immortal. The pathogenesis of such an illness is not exactly rooted in knowledge, dare I say, but I take his word for it and make it to Freya, who confirms this is the reason for his ailment, and that the cure is the keeper of the bridge of the damn the place is a frigid and cold one, where my frost axe will be useless against the Night King's forces. Not to worry though, these hands are Class A lethal weapons according to the US classification of dangerous firearms.
Then I must return home, dig up a past I swore would stay buried.
I leave to do what needs to be done, leaving her to throw some spices on my son's forehead while I take her boat through a storm. Athena cameo. I fist my way through to our home, arriving to see what Kratos had hidden in his floorboard.
There's nowhere you can hide, Spartan. You will always be a monster.
I know. But I am your monster no longer.
All right, brother. Let's see what those blades can do.
Good news is the portal to the bridge is in my backyard, making it especially convenient for travel in case I ever need to go beat up the devil. Making small talk with Mimir, who reveals he was on my hip the entire time I was talking about Athena, leading him to believe that Schizo runs in the family. Rock comes through as hyped as I was upon seeing those late-stage abortion devices, nearly finding out if Smurf sticky substances are of a turquoise color palette, telling him about Atreus, and he tries his best to help, upgrading my gear before we move on to Helheim. Look at these souls. This right here is nothing short of what happened in Armenia post-World War I.
Someone cooked here.
We have to follow the bridge of the damned till we find the seer who ensures everyone in Helheim is a dead spirit and not some ne'er-do-well on a field trip as I put these blades to good work. Spinning around like a Beyblade and even setting hell on fire. Well, this hell, I'm sure Kratos doesn't need these blades for most others. He's got expert rock climbing mastery for that. Time moves a lot slower here, so we have a chance to get back to Atreus before he succumbs to the illness, learning that Helheim is Weenie Hut Jr.'s. Well, the real party takes place in Valhalla and only available to those who die in battle. If you're a criminal, pussy, or worse, old? Oh, we got Super Weenie Hut Juniors for our most esteemed pussies, which seems like a system that would encourage engaging in suicidal odds, but that's probably why the only people who believe in Norse today are, well, less than a small village. Probably due to the effects of natural selection. I mean, kinda hard to build a religious base when all the followers storm Area 51 with the Naruto run to die and skip the life cutscene to enter Valhalla ASAP. The administration seems to be congested as the backlog for Hell is piling piling up and the bureaucracy's understaffed, but I'm sure after we kill the gatekeeper, things will move quicker, as we move to make the southern US border look more fortified than a Catholic girl's legs in comparison. The Skyrim giant with a substantial toothpick draws on some ancient powers, but I'm sure posthumously he wished he could draw upon some hemorrhoid cream as I crush the troll, with little trouble now that Kratos is at 100% power. Some bird creature is looking at me with displeasure, however. After seeing Kratos with the chains, he knows better than to intervene. As I move to mutilate the corpse, grabbing the heart
Kratos. Zeus.
Zeus?
My father.
Your father was Zeus? Well, that explains a lot.
How the hell is the man here? I personally ushered in the new era after putting him on a shirt. With no way for me to escape, my goose looks cooked, my chicken fried, potatoes mashed until Brock of all people show up and...
Oh, quick, give me your blades.
Why?
Yeah, I said I'd help you and I aim to. Come on. My equipment's in Midgard. Be right back.
You don't suppose he nicked those, do you?
Well, I am kinda stuck here. Wouldn't exactly be able to retaliate, learning that Kratos and keeping his weapon on hand don't exactly mesh well together.
The axe did not return.
However, Brock returns, telling me he gave my blades wind harnessing capabilities to progress the plot. I use the winds of hell to escape the worst nightmare of an Australian as Mimir sits there in shock, knowing I'm the one who rubbed socks on the carpet before resting my nuts on the peak of Mount Olympus. With these blades, no man, woman, one-eyed creature from Doom nor Thing can stop me as I launch said Doom monsters as a projectile form of an IED, which proves extremely effective, returning to the bridge while Mimir lays there trembling in front of the ghost of Sparta.
I finally understand. I'm dangling from the hip of the bloody ghost of Sparta.
As the words have the same effect on me as a prescribed enema, obliterating the controls of all my sphincters. After getting an earful from Mimir telling me I gotta tell my son who his granddaddy was, lest he be on life support for life, we arrive to Brock, who took some winds from hell, and now I can use the fast travel to return to the witch's hut as she takes the heart, puts it in a stew, really hoping Norse gods don't have a thing for cannibalism, but false alarm, it's just the smell of rotting hearts they love. I thought they were crazy for a second. Freya tells me the story of her son and how the runes foretold something sickening that would befall him, leading her to save him at the cost of his love, and I shouldn't do the same to my son. Honestly, there's like 20 gods. I'm sure we can look up a Norse mythology book right now and find out who she's talking about. Kratos says the kid is cursed, smells, and gets no bitch. It appears the boy's abandonment issues are at large. Guess third try will have to wait, and after a good long handshake from Freya, we make our leave. We hear her story of how Odin trapped her in Midgard because he doesn't want the other gods, the Oppy ones, to hear how he treated their daughter and separated, so he kept her here without contact from them, which also explains why she lies under this turtle thing. He gives her shelter, she protects him from the evils of the Okay, yeah, for sure, you're really doing your part keeping the streets of Pooh Land free from any nefarious creatures. After learning she scammed the turtle, we return to Tyr's temple, but just as we get on the boat and think the boy was too groggy to remember my harsh words.
I know you overheard my talk with Freya.
He knows I never wanted him though, which, fair, third time's the charm and all that, and after telling the others for the entirety of the saga that he would not, in fact, inform the boy of his heritage, he hears one word and acts like a sleeper agent, dusting off his SS uniform before sitting down Atreus in his penthouse in Argentina, informing him about the deep-rooted intricacies in his past, about how he is a god and how with great power comes great responsibility.
Boy, have you nothing to say?
Can I turn into an animal?
Can you turn into an animal?
He asks what he can do, giving options any young man would pay to have, such as turn into an animal, touch the sun, fly, turn invisible, find out exactly how much he owes in taxes. However, Kratos tempers the burgeoning deity's expectations, informing him that powers like those are unlikely to manifest and far too powerful for any normal god, but the fact he can speak 15 languages, understand 45, and converses with animals is probably a key to his future abilities. But he's gonna be the greatest translator of all time. Would suck if you had a power like that. Zeus is out here throwing lightning, Kratos is casually lifting up industrial-grade bridges, and your best ability is a glorified translator for when the Chinese ambassador visits.
The boss will see you now, headass.
We arrive to the vault and the boy spares Kratos and my time, thankfully, from teaching.
I wish I'd known I was a god in Alphon. I wouldn't have felt so bad about killing so many elves.
Well, I'm not sure that's the lesson.
Kratos sees nothing wrong with this and lets Mimir give the great responsibility speech while I take on the far more important task of running in a circle without touching outside the red circle. A most arduous task. I try assaulting my son, but alas, even Kratos at full strength wields no power to harm children in video games, so I settle for busting out the moves for the rest of the ride. We arrive at the vault and discover Sauron's ring. Of course this had to be a puzzle. You use the winds of Alfheim to get the circles to stop moving and transport the wind to different traps you have to use your axe to stop. It's very tedious and repetitive, not to mention a most lethal weapon for suicidal players, but at the first vault, after sampling the finest Greek vintage.
What'd you find?
Still got some lube left over from the Helheim fight, Mr. Clean?
That's from a great desert land very far from here.
Oh god, they're already planning God of War 7, where Kratos goes one-on-one against Anubis for the fate of Egypt. As I'm turning the gears, something Kratos told Atreus not to do earlier, by the way. Well... Oh no, I've been trapped. And Step-Bro's not too far behind. Quick, son, solve the puzzle. It's the whole Ragnarok thing where the wolves are chasing the sun and moon and will eat them to start the end of the world. Kind of retarded. I mean, wouldn't they die too? Were they forced to complete the puzzle from earlier too, leaving them to look at the tide noose and razor blades with fuck me eyes? I'm so confused. We solved the what do you mean it's not stopping? At the last second, Atreus puts in his mother's knife, which must be made of raw obsidian from Minecraft. How the hell did that break those chains, saving me, even getting praise from Kratos? My goodness, maybe we weren't rising to meet the spikes after all. The sky must have been falling. Freya's protective ruin was rubbed off earlier, around the time I was en route to becoming the main cash cow of the hentai studio, but I'm sure that won't come back to bite us in the future. I gift Atreus a replacement knife and a speech that probably boosts his ego higher than the healthy limits. I mean, earlier he was talking about genociding elves. I don't think calling them Untermensch or whatever Hitler was saying about Jews is gonna temper his heart and give him the discipline he needs. The ruin jumps onto the body of Atreus as two giants jump to meet us this time. But with my dual wielding, I have an elemental advantage against both of them, treating their health bars like Atreus wants to treat those elves. And this moment, at about the last quarter of the game, is where I realized the requirements were just for the bonus and that I can actually purchase the abilities whenever I want. Kratos decides he's gonna be there for his son, actually raise him, make him into a man or a god he can be proud of, doing that by feeding the 11-year-old some wine. Excellent parenting strategy. Showboating after the kid takes one sip and almost forces us to take another trip to Helheim.
Father? Why did you leave your home and come here?
Well, you see, son, there's not much of my home left. I massacred all of them. A true clinic, bringing about the apocalypse through nothing more than daddy issues.
Zeus, your son has returned!
The head tries to temper the kid's excitement and how everyone deserves a fair trial amongst a jury
Quiet,
of peers.
head. We are. We know better.
While I play around with my newfound abilities, our resident megalomaniac is thinking how hard he's gonna flex on the dwarves, but Kratos warns that if he does, he's gonna show Atreus the exact technique he used to eliminate an entire pantheon. Atreus attempts to tell anyway, but Sindri mishears and thinks Atreus pleasured himself off the wheel axle, causing him to hunch over and nearly vomit. Sindri gets to talking about his brother again.
Let me guess. Your brother isn't as talented as you, and his work is junk.
Those things are accurate. Your point?
It's all you ever talk about, over and over. Do something about it or shut up already.
I see.
Yeah! We're sick of hearing about little people's little problems.
All right. That hurt a little. Let's have a look at your gear then.
The fuck was that for? You might be a god, but you still ain't old enough to avoid this ass whooping. Come here. Unfortunately, it seems Atreus' godly power is going ghost, leaving him impervious to my strikes. Sindri, you seem to have a troll problem. Not to worry, me and my chains will get the job done, showcasing my newfound abilities before making the troll call me daddy is the last thing it ever speaks. Atreus is sounding awfully confident for someone who's been riding my coattails all game. Nah, finish the journey on your lonesome. Let's see how far that goes. Bro, even Kratos is telling Atreus he went too far. What? You know how bad you have to fuck up to get Kratos, the ghost of Sparta, genocider of Greeks, to go?
It was needless and unkind.
More important than kindness.
Your mother would disagree.
She wasn't a god. Why don't you let me carry her up from here?
No.
Why not?
Because you'll probably piss on her ashes since she wasn't a god like you said. After literally threatening to whoop his ass, not even joking, a portal opens, as with the Norse unable to stop me and the future Egyptian pantheon probably causing little trouble. Yeah, I mean their head honcho is a fucking furry. God of War 9 is gonna be beatable with an AC remote on the PlayStation 8. Hopefully beatable quickly enough to be first in line to grab the demo for GTA 6. We have to send in the multiverse to arrest my onslaught whilst the kid's arrogance continues to grow. First thinking we can stop Odin and his pantheon, then mocking what he perceives to be an assassination attempt by Rockslide.
Magni did his worst. He's dead.
Magni isn't even a god. Bro would probably get tucked in by Percy Jackson, check under the bed for monsters and everything. Inside we find Modi, but mortally wounded as I whip out my cock to piss on his dying corpse. But not before he informs us that Thor blamed him for Magni's death. I will accept some responsibility for this outcome, showing us the clip he's about to send to CPS.
طيب ما هو علاج هذه الأمراض النفسية؟ الضرب.
As Atreus, sensing his weakness due to the fact Death's Uber is already en route, threatens to kill him despite Kratos' orders in the least threatening voice he can muster.
But we're gods. We can do whatever we want.
Whoa, careful now, Atreus. He may just shit himself laughing in pure terror. After dredging back forgotten memories of showing his mother taking back shots from before, Atreus bravely stabs the dying man and Kratos tries to stop him. Honestly, he could have easily stopped the kid, even let him go after the first stab. Kratos, furious despite the fact he could have put a stop to this easily, informs Atreus that there are consequences to killing a god.
Why? How do you know?
Why is he so stubborn? It's like he spams the B button every time the writer tries to evolve his character. Shockingly, after not listening to a word I said post informing him of his godhood, Atreus asks for lessons in a failed attempt to ask where my dual assault blades came from, piecing together the puzzle and...
You said there are consequences to killing a god. You used the blades to kill one. Who else did you kill? Before Magni? How many?
He brings Mimir into this argument and, hey man, Mimir is trying, but he can't do shit here. After getting off the elevator to what seems to be the drug or sweet floor, we beat them back after some back-talking from Atreus, thinking he's tripled in strength over the last 10 minutes, and just as I...
God!
Oh!
What? After Atreus' costly mistake cost my life twice since I forgot the key to beating these things was skipping stones into their processing cores, I obtained my first legendary armor, and Sindri, still salty after getting told off by an 11-year-old, continues to aid us, arriving to the summit where, oh come on, how did you expect me to be level 7 here? I skip them the second time around and make our way to the summit where even Mimir's getting nervous about our silence. We arrive to the door of Jotunheim. Well, considering our previous locations, you would think the Norse gods would know what our target is, huh? Kinda surprising Baldur hasn't shown up as we open the portal to Jotunheim, finally completing our
Brother, look out!
Oh, come on, do you realize how much more editing that means? He makes up for it by spitting out Atreus' arrow like a badass after Kratos makes it clear that Atreus should back off. Kratos, brilliant mastermind he is, uses Boulder as a battering ram for the gate, completely destroying our one and only way into Jotunheim in a true display of retardation. And after inevitably hearing how quick to anger the boy is, Baldur calls him a pussy on his mama no less and proclaims to have recently made a very worthy investment of $5.99.
You are not ready for this.
I am ready.
Well, alright then, guess we have no choice. Go to work.
Oh, your father's right, boy. You are far from ready. Now would you be so kind as to hold this for me?
Bro didn't work, he called in sick! Welp, it's Jover. Nope, never mind, he jumps off the cliff, landing on top of the dragon, and somehow both he and Baldur keep their balance enough to fight effectively, taking turns at being the top in an exhilarating battle of stamina. I haven't seen this intense of a war over a prepubescent child since Karl Malone and EDP went to war over the neighborhood's loaded white van. He Superman punches me off, but I rig the engines to blow before I fall, leaving both us and the dragon to crash. I break into the bridge, finding Baldur about to summon every god in Asgard to come stop me, and yeah, it's never been more Jover than it is right now. However, Kratos decides to take him out, with us using the bridge to get to— oh god, kid, not again. Kratos, knowing his impossible odds at having to face Baldur and Atreus' even-numbered chromosomes, makes the decision most would call pure suicide. That is, until they check the deck stacked against him and sends us to Helheim. It's even more Jover than was previously thought possible. After a brief air-to-air dogfight, I luckily grab the kid who huffed and puffed glue in class and drop somewhere in the frozen skin of hell. Kratos finally tells the boy off and lets him know we're here because of him and his incredulous decisions, and how he must be the new god of love considering the fact he's been fucking us in the ass this entire game. We make towards a ship that can help us escape from this place as Atreus gets a vision from hell about himself. He plays the victim, of course, thinking, what? That wasn't him. He'd never force them into the trains like that. This is photoshopped. After dealing with another knight who seems to have taken a wrong turn before Elden Ring's world, we locate Baldur in a heated argument of his own. Maybe we should give him some privacy.
Every right. I am your mother.
That no right, witch.
He seems to have a chronic case of mommy issues as she cast a spell on him as a child to make him feel nothing. No pain, no women, no drinking, no drugs. Goodness. A fate worse than death indeed. I can see why he grew up like that. Real Baldur is just cheering from the sidelines like he was a boxing coach right before his side gets knocked out cold. They blame Mimir for not telling them, my guy, you could've went to the local library, gotten your card, and picked out a book from Norse mythology.
Read, nigga, read!
After obliterating the ship's crew with my blades,
I will have much to do after I kill you.
Who is that?
oh god, we gotta get out of here.
Not entirely sure this is seaworthy.
Nonsense. Finest ship on the 7 seas, just a little bit of a fixer-upper. We get the ship in working order as it'll take us to a waterfall, and from there we need to trek on foot. But it seems the iceberg, having been waiting so long for a ship to sail through, blows its load early and traps us before we can even make it out the harbor. But we kill 2 birds with 1 stone here as Kratos cuts the sail loose and uses it to catch heat from the fire as our boat is now a hot air balloon, only to get stuck after a few seconds. Not to worry though, we break the bridges holding the balloon. Mimir in his near infinite wisdom that has been hidden from us all game states,
You do realize it's over, don't you?
the joviality of the situation is not lost on me, as well as some warnings about the boy being one wet willy away from showing up to school with a trench coat, and how I should deal with him. After pushing off the last bridge, we are finally free with no obstacles left to stand in our path.
Kiss me, Father. It is time to end this.
Yes, my son. It is time.
No.
It's that voice again. Do you know who that is?
Look at me dance! Ha ha ha, I'm so quirky, ha ha. The Draugr refused to let us leave and launch 3 boarding parties to take out our flames as we make to dislodge each and every one until the other side just gets sick of this.
Or harpoon!
Really money, nigga.
After ingeniously believing shit bows to be overrated anyways, Zeus shows up in form this time, blessing us with the ending of God of War 3, where it seems like the graphics and texture pack of that game stayed the same. Probably just how Greeks look IRL, to be honest. Atreus breaks me out of my watching Kratos in his prime, where he could X triangle for days on end. But not to worry about our current predicament, Atreus has a plan.
Jump!
Truly a tactical mastermind. Falling into the chamber of Odin, we break through the front door and find the missing panel of Tyr, where he flexes his magic by moonwalking along all dimensions of gods with Greek and Egyptian on top, with Norse and what appears to be the air tribe symbol from Avatar on the bottom. That's right, Kratos is gonna fist the Fire Lord himself in God of War 12 on the day of the comet just to prove how strong he really is. After using laser vision on the panel, Tyr finally gets it. How the giants escaped and how we can get to Jotunheim. Finally, my god, I take Tyr out back and suck him off, zip up his pants when I'm done too, just for the chance to look at Jotunheim at this point. But first we need a dwarf. Well, I know two who can easily make the key we need. Atreus seems to be growing up, either that or not wanting to deal with Kratos' messy past, and when questioned about his knowledge, I have no idea what he said, bro. I don't speak olive oil. Now, without having the freezing heat of hell nor the Draugr on our backs, Kratos asks why he didn't inform us about Baldur and Freya before.
He is!
No way. Freya put a spell on Mimir to stop him from telling us how to beat him. It was probably when she spit on him. Not that time, the first time when she was indulging his kink.
Good.
Oh.
Brock refuses to make the design since it can't be used as a tool to genocide nor even homicide, but Sindri comes through and says something about shinges and skag slab, as the brothers rejoice over skag slab, shingles, spines, measles, and the like, bringing the two warring sides together, marking it with their brand, letting us know quality was put into the product. Brock and Sindri's. Even showing responsibility, look at Sindri still worried about the coronavirus and keeping himself sanitary, truly a man worthy of running a multi-million-dollar metallurgy conglomerate. We decide to explore underneath the realm travel room, moving into the inner sanctum of the inner sanctum, finding the rune for Jotunheim and an upside-down doorway as Kratos makes to lift off, seeing it attached to chains on either side, the knowledge of which causes the two statues to move, but that doesn't stop Kratos with inassailable logic. The temple can be flipped. Well then, let's flip the temple. We take a transporter down to the basement, making our way through a few traps and enemies before taking out the first chain and oh, not again. Along with the trap, though, it proves easier than I first remembered before quite literally repeating everything for the next chain, word for word, bar for bar. Mimir tries to limit the carnage that will ensue if this doesn't work, talking about peace as Atreus figures out the only way you could find the gate to Jotunheim is if you had peace deep in your heart and some other Disney Junior shit. Personally, I was gagging the entire time they were talking about this peace shit, still being all about that Geno slide, and Kratos, well, not exactly Mahatma Gandhi over here. We get to a Unity Stone, kinda looking like the Unity 5 engine in physical form, and it all makes sense now. This is how you could travel between realms on the teleporter thingy. Although that begs the question, how did Kratos get to Norse land in the first place? We use the Mystic Gateway to, well, it seems to be a dead end. Kinda like a cliff. We arrive at another pathway and enter a building while Atreus gives the play-by-play. I decide to play cheerleader, and Mimir, would you do the honors?
Well, I'm sure we're past the worst of it.
Well, it seems my cheerleading skills were a little too good for the mindless beasts. We go 3 rounds of color-focused battles, including a familiar troll with a familiar finisher, making it back to Midgard and the bridge. All an elaborate ploy to hide Jotunheim from Odin. How bad can he really be? Finally, we make our way to Jotunheim, deducing our need to cover our tracks, lest Odin is just as bad as the giants seemingly thought.
There's no travel crystal.
What? Mimir needs to use his eyes as travel crystals. Eyes plural, meaning that this entire thing was a waste since the other eye can be in any number of places. The only people who might know are Brock and Sindri, since they're sneaky little bastards who'd always tail Odin, no doubt looking to see if they can sell him some cheap gimmicky wares. We ask for his other eye, and every time Sindri tries to tell us, he gets nauseous. Almost like the spell Freya placed on Mimir. But it turns out that in a wonderful coincidence, Odin asked Brock to build a certain statue, the one of Thor on the lake my boy ate, but he refused, and despite that, it got done all the same as everything falls into place. We calmly and collectively travel to the Horn where Mimir asks my boy about the potential fact that he swallowed his eyeball, and the serpent says he is open to allowing us to row into his mouth.
Take a trip on my tray.
We row our way through the serpent's mouth, courteously careful not to cause gingivitis as our boat survives the stomach acid, which Mimir seems like he's willing to try and risk a sip to see how it tastes. We get to the statue, decomposing it on top a chest, finding the other eyeball and putting it into Mimir's socket for safekeeping.
Thank you, brother.
Making our way back to the boat, checking our valuables, deducing it's done and there is nothing left but to go and transport to Jotun.
What's going on?
Ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts. We seem to be dealing with a minor case of turbulence. No, my boy! He decided to spit us out on the dead giant from earlier, very peculiar. Freya. She claims to be looking for her son after seeing me and Atreus being so close, and asked the woods and trees where he was, informing her he's still in Midgard. While it shouldn't be too difficult to find him. Ah, there he is.
Do you have any idea at all, what you have cost me?
A chance at Odin's scrotum? I'm still not sure why you're following us other than your wanting of that Odysseus.
I know that you're still angry. I know that how you feel hasn't changed, but I want you...
How I feel?
Look, man, I know how this blindness might look a little unfair from certain perspectives. Kratos breaks through and tries to talk no jutsu him, and makes to square up against the immortal. Not only do I have to fight Baldur, an immortal, but the Wicked Witch of the West is trying to turn us into main characters of a gangbang hentai, making our endeavors considerably more strenuous. Atreus tries to protect me, but gets gut punched and is bleeding. This isn't looking good.
Not my blood.
That's why she looked at the arrows like it was a WMD. No wonder my boy put us near a giant he wants to show. While she tries throwing us away, Mimir takes the time to tell us now he remembers everything. Now I not only have to stop Baldur from killing us while taking care of the kid, but now I'm locked in a battle with Freya, who wants to save her son from us. The son who wants to kill her, with us wanting to save her from her son, who also wants to kill us for Odin. It's very confusing, so I do the only thing I know how to and start beefing with everything I see. In a massive battle, the man is glowing blue, meaning ice, meaning Kratos, is about to treat him like he was Ares. Made much easier considering the molding mommy issue debuff enjoyer is nothing like the OG God of War. One who would hear the sound of my sweaty balls clapping against my thighs from across the world before whipping out a protractor and a TI-84 calculator to find the directional derivative of my current location. If not for Freya trying her best to homie block me, lifting up the wedding ring and sniping the crystal. Tag teamwork right there. We move to another field and the masochist is so in love with pain he sets his body on fire, forcing me to use my axe instead and moving to finish him off. Come on! She's acting like we're doing this for her, knowing full well that Baldur's gonna come for us right after. It's time to show the greatest fight choreography ever choreographed in a video game. Baldur, seemingly confident in his victory, gloats, not knowing that you don't get called the Ghost of Sparta for actually becoming a ghost. You get it for the sheer power and quantity of these hands, throwing him into another arena as the recently mortal Demortal ironically thinks it isn't fair that I can't be killed. Through one final round where I have to switch weapons and use both to deal with this icy hot variance. Okay. The fuck you want Atreus to do, bro? Dude's like 3 feet tall. He walks up to them and...
Oh, they've scored! I do not believe what... You think you can beat me now?
Quiet. It's time for some more choreography. Just as my fisting is nearing peak vigor, Freya blows us, and not in the way I thought she would when first meeting her, and Atreus, after hearing the language just twice before, is now somehow fluent in my boynese. You see his eyes flash? Man was born to be the god of administrating. Bro's superpowers at 9 to 5. He summons the serpent to take out the giant, finally getting Freya out of the picture and leaving me to deal with Baldur once and for all.
He's beaten, Father. Not a threat.
Now you decide to set a good example for your son? Talking about trains and gas chambers, that's just a phase. I'm about to kill the dude who's been hunting us all this time and will continue to in all likelihood hunt us. Gotta set a good example for my son. Not a good one for Baldur, it seems. Now if I said at the start of the video, Freya's gonna be choked out while whispering I love you to her son, where would your mind first wander? Kratos, the hypocrite he is, says peace is the only way and the cycle of violence ends here in a move that is objectively bad but mildly entertaining. It starts from now. Freya is quite distraught, understandably, and threatens to rain down hell upon me and my son till the day I die. Well, you know, we could always start a few seconds later, right, Kratos? She means to threaten me by telling my son my secret.
Boy, listen close. I'm from a land called Sparta. I made a deal with the god that cost me my soul. I killed many who were deserving. And many who were not. I killed my father.
That was your father in hell. Is this what it is to be a god? Is this how it always ends? Sons killing their mothers? Their fathers?
No. We will be the gods we choose to be. Not those who have been. Who I was is not who you'll be. We must be better.
Bye, Freya. See you next game. Toodaloos, peace, au revoir, hola, soy Dora, and all that. We talk about philosophy and the backstory of Freya and Odin's lore as we make our way to the temple, arriving to said temple, setting the destination to Jotunheim and using Mimir's eyes to open a passageway. Before we enter, Mimir says he doesn't think we'll get a heartwarming ending with him around and we should leave him. Agreeing, and hey, what do you know, a few dwarves show up just in time. Here, catch.
I can do this. No, I can't. Oh.
We arrive at the giant's fingers as Kratos gives us a beautiful scene of having nothing to hide, and scars are a part of who I was, and the razor blades I wielded until Atreus ruins the moment. Finally allowing Atreus to carry his mother's ashes as he's wished the entire ride, but as we continue, everything seems eerily quiet. Well, it seems that leaving Midgard and covering their tracks didn't exactly save them. Atreus wields some magic and reveals another storyboard, creepily revealing they had a time traveler, or could predict the future with their murals as it dawns on Atreus that mother was a giant. Kratos, you're really telling me you didn't know giants could be smaller and your wife was one? Fuck Harry Potter, we gotta get this dude some Cat in the Hat. Apparently Baldur was following the ashes instead of me this entire time. I mean, if you wanted to help us spread them, it would have made things a lot simpler, but hey Atreus, you missed a spot. That's, it's not good. We arrive at the highest peak in all the realms as together we begin spreading her ashes as Kratos finally embraces that the second try might not be so bad after all. After the deed is done, with Atreus being now known as a conglomeration of 3 types of beings, it seems his giant name was Loki. Well, that's the game. I wonder what we can expect in God of War Ragnarok. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.